Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Barely There podcast. We are 4-Star Chicago Sports, and we got some combine news for you. We got some Bears nuggets, and we're going to ask you guys out there, should the Chicago Bears draft a wide receiver? I like a couple in the later rounds, but in the meantime, before we get to all that, I got my boys Jason and Kyle in the house. What's going on, fellas? How we doing today?
What's going on?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Living the dream. We got a couple people that jumped in. We got some people in the chat, or some people watching, I should say. Welcome, everybody. We appreciate you being with us on this Wednesday. Fun things going on. The NFL never stops. We got the combine jumping off. We got some great dates coming up here for the combine. If people want to see, it's scrolling on the bottom. We got defensive linemen and linebackers tomorrow, Friday, defensive backs and tight ends on Friday, the linemen on Thursday, Saturday, we got quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. And then
Sunday's the big day.
Sunday will be the big day. So offensive linemen. So it should be a fun combine week for everybody. And I will definitely be paying attention here on Saturday. But as we talk about this, before we get into anything, we have some exciting news at 4-Star Chicago Sports. We have been spending some time with some industry experts, and we're going to be going over an overhaul. We're going to be putting up a website for you guys to stay in contact with us. We can stay in contact with you. We're going to be running promotions, putting up blogs, doing all types of wonderful stuff. It's going to be happening over the next couple of weeks. So give us time and we'll keep you guys invested. We're going to be changing our logos and we'll get you guys all excited. And then we'll just debut it to the country as soon as we can.
We're growing up.
We're trying to grow up. We're trying to be big boys on the block. But we do have some combine news, and here I'll tell you this right now. One of my favorite things that came out of these interviews was this comment right here by our GM, Ryan Poles, who said, it's always a priority to re-sign your own. I really believe Kyler Gordon's going to continue to elevate his game to the next level. That was what Ryan Poles said when he was asked about the Kyler Gordon extension. I know everybody on this panel would be really, really excited to see that guy re-signed. Thoughts on Kyler Gordon, gentlemen?
It's his first draft pick, right? Or one of them?
It is.
I mean, and he's rewarded some of the good players. He's rewarded Cole Kmet, even though he didn't draft him. Was it Jalen got an extension as well? So, I don't see why. Honestly, he should be a starting cornerback in the league. I don't know why, he's just a nickel. I guess they call that a starter, but the man's a stud. I mean, when he is on the field, the Bears are a much better defense, period.
100%. Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the option's kind of been taken out of his hands, right, Sean? I mean, they signed this, Ben Johnson goes out there and gets his guy a defensive coordinator and Dennis Allen. And the first thing Dennis Allen says is one of the main reasons I came here is because the guy Kyler Gordon in the nickel there. He is probably one of the top 3 players on the Chicago Bears right now. He definitely has earned an extension. And you know what, Sean? He's not going to be crazy expensive. His numbers don't jump off the page on PFF or anything like that. He just does a lot of little things, does everything well. One of the most athletic players in the NFL. And I believe that he's going to be a Chicago Bear for a long time here.
Hey, and Scotty Angel said, definitely draft the slot receiver. Scott, in just a little bit after we get through some of these comments through the combine interviews yesterday, we have some great draft possibilities at the slot for the Chicago Bears that hopefully they can pick up in the later rounds, maybe 4th or 5th. I don't think we have a 4th round pick, do we, this year? No. So hopefully in the 5th round or maybe the 3rd round, but we'll discuss that in just a little bit. To get back to some of this.
Hey, real quick. Hello, everybody. Scott, Bruce, everybody that's logged in. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe if you haven't already, please. We love you guys.
Yeah, and one of the 4-stars himself has joined us, guys. We got Brendan Duplessis in the chat. Scotty Angel, it's always nice to see you. Breaking news, Bruce, our producer and moderator here. We appreciate all you guys joining us. Thank you very much. Scott, we will get to some of those slot receivers later on.
So Ben Johnson did say this weekend, or just yesterday, actually. He was looking forward to working with Swift. I know we've had some conversations about DeAndre Swift possibly not being here anymore because he got fired from Detroit with him, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't appear to be the case, at least on the surface. Poles was asked, do you have the personnel you need at running back? Well, he never said yes. He said, we're going to take a look at what we have, and we're going to get what we need done in that room. So I don't say, if I'm reading into this a little bit, it says, I don't think we have enough. But maybe we're going to be drafting somebody here very shortly. And we do know he's been interested in Caleb Johnson. The big news out of yesterday was Ashton Gianti was added the Bears to his interview list. So they will be talking to him in whenever that happens here in the next couple of days. But what do you guys think about this personnel move? Because, they kind of want to shift it like it was in Detroit, even though they're saying this is going to be not Detroit's type offense. What are your thoughts on this adding a running back? Or Kyle, really quick, are you happy? Do you think you're happy with Roschon, Swift, and a returning Ian Wheeler?
Am I happy with it? I definitely don't hate the Bears running back room. I think DeAndre Swift is better than people give him credit for. I think he's one of the most explosive players in the NFL if you can get him in the open field. But the Bears need that bruiser, Sean. This is not a Ben Johnson, a Detroit Lions thing. Almost every team in the NFL now has their Sonic and Knuckles, their Thunder and Lightning, whatever you want to call it. The Bears need the guy who can get those tough 2-3 yards, the guy who can score from the 1 yard line of the goal line. Every single team in the NFL is doing it. You've seen how well it's been working for certain teams, particularly the Detroit Lions, although there are a lot of other teams who it works for. But yeah, unless you can get one of those guys like Saquon Barkley or, a guy like GNT, maybe he's possibly one of those guys who can kind of do everything. You need that 1-2 punch. Guys, even look at Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is one of the best running backs in the NFL, if not the best running back in the NFL. And when that team is in passing situations, he does not touch the field. This is just the way the NFL has gone. You got to have 2 or 3 guys in that room. And I fully expect the Bears to draft a running back at some point in this draft. As a matter of fact, guys, we've talked all the beginning of this offseason about how the Bears are going to draft offensive, defensive line and address offensive, defensive line in free agency. I think running back is going to be high on the list. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see one of those 2 second-round picks address the running back in the draft.
And you know what? You wish you could draft a guy like, say, David Montgomery and develop him and then keep him on your team. And if we could just do something like that. Oh, wait, we did have him. Oh, sorry.
Hindsight's 20/20, Jay.
So part of that interview for Ben Johnson on Pardon the Take, he was asked about the center position. He said, it's less about me and more about the QB. With Caleb being a second-year player and everything that entails, I thought he had a productive first year in terms of exposure of a lot of things that can go wrong. To help him out the most going forward, I do think we need a strong presence at center, a smart player that can set the table for the run game and a pass game perspective. Now, Kyle and I have been beating this drum for damn near a year about getting a center on the Chicago Bears football team. Jason, what are your thoughts here? Who's your favorite guy? If say Drew Dahlman is gone, is there anybody else you would like on this market possibly?
There was a couple of guys that are out there. I think that center from Carolina, I think he could be a good, cheap fit, but from what I've heard, I think Poles wants to be aggressive and is ready to be aggressive. And I think that's why he made those 2 cuts. I think he's ready to be aggressive in free agency. That tells me I'm going for Dahlman. That's what I hear when I hear that statement. Hey, we're going to be aggressive. Yeah. We want to build in the trenches. We want to, Johnson did say that, look, we're not going to get 5 new offensive line guys and starting this year. It's just not feasible. It's not really going to happen. That tells me that he probably wants to keep the tackles. Maybe Amagaji is going to jump in at competition at left guard. Who knows? Maybe they try to find a left guard, but you're not getting a left guard in free agency. So that would mean you draft one. Honestly, I think it all centers around Dahlman because he's the number 1 guy out there. Yeah. He's got a 78.8 overall grade on PFF, which isn't great, but his tape says different. You know what I mean? He's just a really good, solid bruiser type of guy. So it really all depends on what they want to do. Poles even said too, he was asked the question, it was about on the defensive line about, hey, would you draft would you pick up a free agent edge rusher and then draft one? He's like, well, look, I would argue that it's not bad to do that because you can never have too many edge rushers. You know what I mean? So I think they feel the same way about offensive linemen too, because one of the comments that he made in his presser, Johnson said that, look, you might need 7, 8, 9 guys on the line because guys get injured. So,
Right.
Don't be surprised. Coleman Shelton's not going to be there. He's gone. He's the worst guy in the universe. But, what if I doubt they draft one because they're not that great, but I don't know how they're grading guys. So don't be afraid if they draft and pick up a couple of free agents on the offensive line all at the same time. And I'm all for it. Whatever we got to do to fix that line, that is step one. Step one. You got to fix the running game. You got to fix the passing game. And you do that with the line.
And really quick, what's going on? Cricket Commish, Daniel Jeffries. Thanks for joining the show, man. Really appreciate y'all being in the building with us today. What's your thoughts there, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, Sean, I don't want to jump ahead here, but man, there was just so many amazing things that Ben Johnson talked about in that interview.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was one of my favorite head coaching interviews in the history of being a Chicago Bears fan. I mean, the guy just addressed everything we've talked about, all of our concerns this past season, going in the offseason.
And they threw shade at what's his nuts for like your cats.
He threw shade at a couple people. He said he's never had a quarterback that's good at moving around in the pocket. That's a shot at Jared Goff. But I mean, Sean, they're running out of options, running out of time. I mean, if you drafted a quarterback number 1 overall, you expect this guy to be almost like kind of say, I don't want to say the savior of the franchise, but a guy who's going to be big in changing the culture here in Chicago. You need to protect him. And, I love how Ben Johnson broke down what a center means to a young quarterback, especially in his second year learning a new offense, again, with all new coaches. And the thing I loved the most about that interview, like I said, Sean, not to jump ahead, but he referred to that Carolina Panthers team and how they rebuilt the interior of that offensive line this past offseason and how it paid dividends for them. And they started to look like a really good football team late in the season. I think you should expect to see the same here in Chicago. If some reason, some way, some shape, some form, the Bears can't land Dahlman, which to me is kind of like the crown in this free agency class. Yeah, you'd like to see a guy like Kelly or somebody, maybe not somebody who's you're not going to, or maybe even if the Bears have to try to trade for somebody, you'd like to see something like that. What I don't want to see, Sean, is I don't want to see them sign 2 or 3 really cheap free agent centers and play this game like, well, maybe one of them will work out. Maybe they got to stop doing this. The Bears have done this for the last 5-6 years. The Bears have had their quarterback's been sacked over 50 times 4 years in a row now. It's becoming obvious, guys, that these two things are tied together. The offensive line is one of the most important things on this in the NFL. And you heard Ben Johnson say that in his interview. You should build through the trenches out, and you need some guys who are physical and tough. That's what I expect the Bears to bring here. If they can't land Dahlman because he's franchise tagged or because Atlanta fixes their salary cap there and they found a way to re-sign him, they have to sign somebody with experience. So I'd say, Kelly, maybe Freeze, or maybe even I don't like to see this, Sean, but if the options are that limited, maybe even sign a really good free agent guard and see if maybe he could slide over that center position. But you certainly can't go into next season with Coleman Shelton. It's not a possibility. No.
Well, to your point about Carolina, Ben Johnson was asked directly if he believes they can flip the offensive line in 1 year at 3 positions. His direct answer was yes. Johnson brought up the Carolina Panthers approach from last year when looking for clues about their plans to rebuild the offensive line. Going into the season, gentlemen, we have Darnell Wright, Ryan Bates, and Bill Murray are the only 3 players in the offensive line currently under contract. He said the first-year head coach noted that Carolina's approach last season was to hand out two large contracts to interior linemen. Robert Hunt became their first free agent guard to land, and shortly after that, they signed Damian Lewis, both to 3-year deals, about $20 million a year. So that will leave the Bears. You got Zeitler, we have Dahlman, we have Becton, we have Fries, we have Smith. They do have some options. I will tell you this. Listening to Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles, and I know, Kyle, we've talked about this. I don't know if I've said this on the show yet, but I'm going to say it now, because this is kind of the way I've felt. I'm not really enamored with these offensive linemen in the draft right now. I just don't think it's like a superior class. I really think for the Bears, their best option is to build this line through free agency, because we just did defensive tackles and defensive ends over the past 2 weeks. This class is loaded with players that can make a difference on that side of the ball. So for me, the approach I would like to see is sign a couple of big guys here through free agency, and then go ahead and turn around and flip this thing on the other side of the ball through the draft, where you have plenty of options in your first 3 rounds to get an impact player. So,
yeah, I mean, that's like Jason just said, Sean. Maybe you'd like to see a little bit of both, right? I mean, Daniel says here, fellas, I believe the Bears don't get Trey Smith. Do we develop what we have, or do we get the center from Atlanta. You guys were talking about Drew Dahlman. But I mean, first of all, Daniel, it sounds like all signs point to Trey Smith becoming a free agent. I think the Bears are going to get first crack at him. I think the Bears are probably one of the top 3-4 teams in the NFL that are valuing guard or center, interior offensive lineman as their top position of need going into the free agency class. So I think the Bears are probably going to give him the best offer. That being said, if the Bears end up having to overpay for this guy, like he wants 4 years, $100 million, I'm out. I don't want Trey Smith here. I don't think you should overpay a guy just because he's the best available option that offseason when you know there's guys who are so much better in the NFL and you can probably find somebody like that in the draft. But I mean, Sean, if the Bears went out and somehow landed Drew Dahlman and Trey Smith in free agency, and then they decided to trade back to 15 and draft Tyler Booker, I wouldn't be upset about that at all. I mean, that's exactly what we need. The Bears need to rebuild this offensive line, and specifically the interior of the offensive line. I wouldn't be upset at all if the Bears go into the next season with Braxton Jones, Tyler Booker, Drew Dahlman, Trey Smith, and Darnell Wright. I think that immediately becomes a much, much better improved offensive line from last year. But you never know what's going to happen, you guys. Ultimately, it depends. I mean, all these other teams are going to dictate how free agency goes. Are you going to get into a bidding war with somebody over Trey Smith? If that's the case, he might not be as appealing to the Chicago Bears.
I think we might have an inside step, though, on Trey Smith with Poles having been in the whole drafting process of him originally. I think then I would hope then that means we know who he is and what kind of character he has. We know everything about him. It's just going to come down to money and if it's feasible. So,
well, when you guys watched that interview today and they asked Ryan Poles directly about Trey Smith, did you hear his answer? Exactly what he said. I won't speak about players that aren't on my team right now. So use context clues, man. That means that's telling me they're going after Trey Smith. That comment right there rang in my brain.
He wants to be aggressive.
Guys,
he wants to be aggressive in free agency.
That's true all over the field. Like the Jay comments on how that Ryan Poles was involved in drafting Trey Smith. I mean, you guys, Ian Cunningham is our assistant GM. He was with the Eagles for a long time. He built a lot of relationships there. Josh Sweat's going to be available free agent. They could go target that guy. I mean, you never know what the Bears are going to do. It depends to me personally, like you guys said earlier, both of you. It just depends on how they feel about these guys in the draft, man. If they don't like any of these offensive linemen, I don't think they're going to go out of their way to draft somebody they think is a lesser player just to address the offensive line. I think ultimately they will try to sign as many guys as they can for the offensive line free agency and ultimately target the defensive lineman in the draft. And Sean, you're right. We talked about this in the middle of the season, right? When the Bears were still playing, people were talking about, anybody know what this draft looks like? Anybody looking forward to the draft? I said it in the middle of the season, guys. The defensive linemen in this draft are far and away better than the offensive linemen in this draft. I mean, top 3 or 4, but there's a lot more good defensive linemen in this draft than there are offensive linemen, for sure. It's not even a question.
Broski Bear, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on, Broski? Thanks for checking in, man. Really, really appreciate you being in here, brother. Really quick too, one of the things, and I know this is going to be a topic, the development of Caleb Williams. The one thing that stood out, what Johnson said when they started talking about the offense, was whatever this offense is going to be, he said it starts at the huddle, breaking the huddle, cadence, motion, and shifts. For me, these were all things that Caleb Williams did not excel at. The point being for me is Caleb has to get into the mentality that the play doesn't start at the snap, especially under Ben Johnson. To be effective, the play begins before they break the huddle, in the huddle, walking. There's a whole different mentality and a whole bunch of different things. And I wanted to guys get your opinion, because he did say things that are most important, starting at the huddle, breaking the huddle, the cadence, the motion, the shifts. All these things were things that Caleb did not excel at. So I just want to get your guys' thoughts. Is this something that we think is going to be feasible in the first year? Or do you guys think maybe it's going to be a little sluggish for Caleb to start the season with these new things and integrating this new offense under Ben Johnson?
It could be sluggish, but he said several times he wants to tear it down to the studs. And he's going to start with tackling, footwork, placement, route running, position. Basically, he's teaching these guys again how to play football, but at the professional level. So that tells me that he's building an offense because he wants these guys to run the routes a specific way. He wants the timing to be at a specific time. He wants blocks to be in a specific place. He wants everything the way he wants it, and he's going to teach them that, which is really nice because that's what a coach is supposed to do, and I don't think we had it with Eberflus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, of course, there's going to be some growing pains, guys. You're talking
Yeah.
about a second-year quarterback learning a whole new offensive system. But what I expect the Bears to do is what most coaches and teams do with rookie quarterbacks or second-year quarterbacks or even quarterbacks who are veterans but they're instilling a new offense, is what you do is the first 4 or 6 weeks of the season, you only open up a certain amount of the playbook to them. Try not to overwhelm them. Help them out a little bit with the cadences. That's what we were talking about. Maybe that veteran center presence there.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ben Johnson will be helping Kill about a lot from the sideline as well. And then the more comfortable he becomes, the more comfortable he looks, the more you start to expand that playbook a little bit. That's what I expect to see here. But yeah, I mean, this is a totally different offense, guys. This is an offense in which all 11 guys have to be on the same page. It seemed like last year at times during the Bears season with Shane Waldron there, some of it just didn't look like it made much sense. Jason's talked about a couple of weeks ago how you'd see 3 or 4 of the receivers in the same zone on the field. It's like, guys, you need to start splitting these guys up so you create a lot of traffic, set accidental picks, as they call them in the NFL, and get these guys open. What Ben Johnson needs to do is try to give Caleb Williams as many layups as he possibly can. Get those screen passes, get those slant routes. And then the more and more comfortable Caleb gets, and the more he trusts his offensive line and he's not seeing ghosts, then start to let him stand back in that pocket, maybe roll out a little bit, open up that playbook, start to throw it on the field. But yeah, for the first few weeks in Chicago, guys, I expect to see a very, I don't want to say vanilla offense, but more bland than you'd seen in Detroit with Jared Goff, who's been running that offense for 3 years now.
This comment by Daniel Jeffries here. Ben Johnson said Caleb was blowing up his phone on Super Bowl Sunday, asking him about certain plays, etc. I didn't hear that, but I
read that this morning. Yep.
I did not. I did not. So that's a good catch. Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate that. Camel Toe, my boy. We love when you're here. In the house. What's up, brother?
Giggity.
Broski Bear. Sanborn is a free agent. Edwards will be a free agent after the season and there's an out in Edmonds' contract after the season. Will we see the Bears sign or extend these guys? I don't
like Edmonds.
I like Edmonds. I think how do I say this? I think Kyle's touched on this a few times. I think they didn't play him correctly in Chicago under this old regime. Because if you go back to his numbers in Buffalo, I mean, this guy was basically a freaking all-pro. And you don't even see him on the field. Somehow he still had 100 tackles on the year. I mean, he is a tackle machine, but
he's also only 26, and I don't think he's going to be that expensive, to be honest with you.
I think Dennis Allen's going to work some wonders with some of these kids. And to be honest, Broski, I think it's really going to depend on how this season pans out. I don't think he's going to be cut or released or, ahead of this contract. I would be surprised. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm speaking of Edmonds. I was speaking of Edmonds, not Edwards. I misread that. I'm sorry.
No,
yeah,
Sean,
Sean,
he references. He's referencing both in this comment.
Yeah,
Sanborn, no. Edwards, yes. Edwards, I would love to be here much longer than where he is. Sorry.
I would fully expect Edwards to get some sort of a contract extension at some point. I don't think it's going to be anything lengthy, maybe 2-3 year contract extension. But yeah, Sean, I agree with you. I think Edmonds, part of his deficiencies were the fact that this coaching staff just took him out of his comfort zone. I mean, this guy was a Pro Bowler in Buffalo, had his best season of his career his last year in Buffalo, comes here. And, I think Bears fans also focus too much on these Pro Football Focus scores, guys. Tremaine Edmonds was not the best player on the field for the Chicago Bears, but he also wasn't as bad as some of these Bears fans make him out to be. I mean, Tremaine Edmonds is probably the best one-on-one tackler on this football team besides maybe outside of Kyler Gordon. And Tremaine Edmonds does come up with occasional big plays from time to time. You just like to see more of them. But, I don't think Edmonds should be a guy who's constantly in coverage. I think he should be blitzing a little bit more. I think he should be spying a little bit more. And I think, Sean, like you said, Dennis Allen is 100% going to try to find a way to get the most out of this guy. And I expect him to be better this year than last year. So that could be said, you guys, with Montez Sweat. I mean, Javon Dexter, with Dennis Allen is by all accounts the top 5 defense coordinator in this league. I expect all these guys to take a little bit of a jump forward at this season.
Yeah, I agree. A couple other quotes. One of the things that, and I actually missed this, and I heard this on the score when I was driving today, and I stopped my truck to write this down for the show. When you're talking about the offensive line, he said that this is important, not the defense. He was not talking about the defense. He said the offense, and this was Ben Johnson's quote. He said the best football players, they always finish around the ball. And I take that quote away when you think about the linemen and you think about how goofy the linemen were. Just go back to the Indianapolis game when they ran that screen and the entire line was laying on their face. This is what I think he was getting at with that quote. The best football players finish around the ball. Blockers, your blockers, things of that nature.
Yeah, they're downfield picking up the running back. They're downfield, setting blocks and doing whatever they can. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, real quick, guys. It's two interesting comments by Vernon here. He says the first comment is league just announced considering changing overtime rules to decrease advantage for team that wins coin toss. I agree with that. I don't think the team that wins the coin toss should automatically get a chance to win the touchdown and score a touchdown, win the game without the other chance to even have a chance to rebuttal. And the second thing he says here is also going to use virtual measurements to dictate first downs. Guys, I have been making fun of the way the NFL does first downs for the last 20 years. I mean, you can watch a tennis match and anywhere that ball lands in the court, they have a virtual court to tell them exactly where the ball landed, whether it was inbounds or out of bounds. And then you go watch the NFL, the sport that makes the most money of any sport in the United States of America. And they're using two fat guys dragging chains down the sideline. And then the refs, how many times have we seen? You guys seen that video? I think it was on Instagram. I think it was a college game where it looked like the ref was just kind of done. He didn't want to be there anymore. And the ball was clearly short of the line to gain, and he just picks it up and moves it 2 inches. It says first down. Have you ever seen that video? I mean, that's the stuff that has to stop. Obviously, you're always going to have human error in sports. No ref or no official is ever going to be perfect, but man, it's 2025 in the NFL. Let's Josh Allen, that playoff game, Josh Allen should have had a first down on that play. This should have been done a long time ago in my mind, guys. It's remarkable to me that they're just bringing this up now, but I'm happy to hear it. Thanks for the comment, Bert. Really appreciate it.
Let's give a big shout out to Foster Covers. We got Bears Country Podcast in the house. What's going on, fellas, man?
What's up, Foster? How you doing, man?
Really quick, and we're gonna get off these quotes. Just the one that I really like, Ryan Poles on Ben Johnson. His ability to really give a clear vision of what he wants and what he needs to be successful has been really, really good. You can just tell the high football IQ is on a totally different level than what I've ever been a part of before. And can you say,
that's a shot. That was a shot.
Yeah, that was a direct shot.
That was awesome. I actually started giggling when he said that. I was like, oh, man, that's awesome, dude.
It's nice to be surrounded by a bunch of smart, intelligent coaches. Like, man, that's brutal.
So just this yesterday and today, and we're going to just spend a couple of minutes on this before we jump into these wide receivers, prospective wide receivers the Bears can draft and the free agents that are available. The Commanders have given Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade. Per Jonathan Jones, the former 2017 first-round draft pick, the Alabama Crimson Tide. 42 career sacks. He's 30. And he does pique my interest. The thing that worries me is 20, 21, and 22. He was outstanding. One of the best D tackles in the league. This is what concerns me. His last 2 years, gentlemen, have been the exact opposite. So, with that being said,
Sean, we know he's dealt with a lot of injuries in the last couple of years, so you have to take that into account.
Well, Kyle, the thing that scares me the most is it looks like his pass rush grade 60 is average on PFF, and we don't want to get too enamored in PFF numbers, but those run defensive numbers are awful. Now, in 2020, 21, and 22, he was over 80 in every statistical category: pass rush, run defense, overall grade. He was rock solid. So you could say injuries, he's approaching 30. Is this a player that's kind of on decline or someone you would want to give up a draft pick to sign?
Well, Sean, like we talked about just a couple minutes ago here, I mean, there are years where I would say yes if certain financial situations where I'd say, yeah, I'd like to see Jonathan Allen here if you can give away a third-round pick to get him here. But, I mean, just with how deep this draft is at defensive tackle and defensive end, I just don't see the point, man. Why would you go get a guy? Why would you trade away a draft pick for a 30-year-old player when your second or third round pick you're trading away for him could end up being a Jonathan Allen type player? It just doesn't make much sense to me.
And you know what? I know he had some injuries, but once they broke up that defensive line, that Montez was on and Chase was on, he all of a sudden isn't good anymore. Okay, well, maybe was he good before? You know what I mean? I don't really know. Maybe he still has a lot left in the tank, but those numbers aren't impressive. And he looks like he's probably going to want $17 million, I heard, or $18 million a year. again, like you said, Kyle, you can go pick up a kid in the draft and pay him $5 million, $4 million a year. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, real quick, guys. I just want to get this comment. Broski Bear says, I don't consider Billings starting caliber, and Dexter isn't proven yet. Pickens has been a disappointment. Bears only have one legit defensive end on their roster. Defensive end, defensive tackle are both high priorities. I will say I'd like to respectfully disagree with the Billings statement, Broski. I think Billings is a more than capable starter. He's actually quietly one of the best rated defensive tackles in the NFL, not this past year, but the year before that, particularly at stopping the run. I think he was ranked number 3. That's a guy you want. I mean, the Bears had a lot of trouble stopping the run after Billings went down. You see the impact that guy has here. I love Billings, and I particularly, guys, I love that contract. Absolutely amazing. One of the best contracts in the NFL, in my opinion. But yeah, I agree with you. Amber and should have Pickens someone else. Yeah, Zach Pickens was a huge miss for Ryan Poles. That was not a good pick. This is the third year in a row now Ryan Poles is missing the third round. He's got to clean that up. Velus Jones, Zach Pickens, and who's the other guy? Oh yeah, and Kuran Amagaji. And you know what? I guess the jury's still out on Kuran Amagaji, guys. But the fact that we drafted somebody who was injured, he came in here, got injured again. He did not look like an NFL left tackle. Maybe he could play guard, but yeah, Ryan Poles needs to clean that third round up. It's starting to get these third round picks. Do you guys not agree? Third round picks should be making an impact on your team immediately. I mean, should be a role player.
Yeah.
And then
good
Sean,
point, Scott Angel.
Go ahead.
Bears
Jay.
run D went to shit after the Billings injury. That's 100% correct.
Yeah, I agree. And somebody earlier in the comments here asked if the Bears would consider using a second or third round pick to address outside linebacker. I don't think so. I mean, you look at what Bond did for the Eagles this season, and that wasn't a huge signing, guys. They didn't pay him a ton of money, but man, he got on that Eagles team and made an immediate impact. I think outside linebacker right now is one of those positions you would never consider like a premium position in the NFL.
No, yeah.
And I think the Bears could probably go get somebody who's really good for relatively cheap. I mean, they've already proven it with TJ Edwards. A 3-year, $18 million contract for TJ Edwards has been absolutely the steal since he got here. He was leading the league in tackles for a good majority of the season 2 years ago. I think they could do the same thing on the other side. Maybe do you guys think there's a chance that maybe they even bring Jack Sanborn back on a cheap contract?
He's inexpensive and he's serviceable. I was just looking at his stats earlier. He only had like 34 tackles. 17 last year.
He plays on a limited basis though, so he only
they ran a lot of nickel
linebacker sets.
And I don't disagree with Broski here. I do like Billings, but he's not a starter on a stud defensive line. He's a rotational player.
Define stud. Are you talking about the Eagles? No, Broski. He's not going to start for the Philadelphia Eagles in front of Jordan Davis or in front of Jalen Carter.
But then I agree with
he's a starter in the NFL.
Foster covers here. Problem is we need 2 Billings. We just don't have enough Billings in the building. So,
and you guys, people use the term starter for defensive tackles. There's not many defensive tackles that play a majority of the game. Those guys are really big guys, though. Those guys take a lot of time off during the game. The only guys you're going to see play like almost 100% of the snaps are guys like Jalen Carter, guys who are big but slender and in good shape. Yeah, but I mean, Jordan Davis is one of the best defensive tackles in football, guys, and he plays about 60% of the snaps. So, I mean, Andrew Billings is a very, very good player. I expect him to be a rotational player here for the Bears next year. I don't think he's getting cut. I've heard people talk about that. I think he does this job. And I think not only does he good at stopping the run, guys, but Andrew Billings is such a big body that the offense kind of has to work around him a little bit.
Yeah, he's a space eater.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. And speaking of the linebacker position, the Titans have granted permission to former Pro Bowl linebacker Harold Landry to seek a trade per sources. Landry started all 17 games last year, finished with 71 tackles, 9 sacks, 18 pressures, and 4 pass deflections. The 28-year-old has 31.5 sacks in his last 3 seasons. And he is due this year $17.5 million as his base salary. So, my friends, Harold Landry, does that pique anybody's interest in the chat or on this panel?
I think we just have so many more needs that are more urgent than linebacker. I mean, look, you never have too many linebackers on your team, but I don't want to see the Bears draft like a DB in the first round or like a wide receiver in the first round or, a line. That's just, to me, a waste when you have such glaring needs on offensive line and defensive line. Yeah. I wouldn't mind a running back if he's a superstar, then okay, great. Let's take one. But, if you keep preaching you're building the trenches and then you don't draft the trenches, people are they're going to start turning on you. So I would draft, Mason Graham or whatever that
God, I wish.
big tackle is. But draft somebody that's going to be an impact on the offensive line, please. Please.
Yeah, I mean, guys, how many of these, and Vernon says, do you think they consider Bolton because he has ties to Ryan Poles? I think Bolton's probably going to be one of the more expensive outside linebackers. I don't think
he's not. I don't think.
I think they already have so much money in their linebacker room right now. I don't think you're going to see any huge signing. But you guys, we just talked about TJ Edwards. We've talked about Jack Sanborn. One of these guys was an undrafted free agent. One of them was drafted late in the draft, and they're both capable linebackers. As a matter of fact, TJ Edwards, you could consider one of the best outside linebackers in football. I just don't see the point to signing some expensive free agent or to drafting a guy high when you've seen so many of these outside linebackers who were drafted late or even undrafted free agents come into the NFL and have immediate success. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, Sean, do you know when Bond was drafted? He wasn't a super high draft pick, was he?
I don't think so.
I mean, that guy was amazing for the Eagles last year. TJ Edwards has been amazing for the Bears since he got here. I just feel like that outside linebacker position is one of those positions you can find late in the draft, and they can surprise some people. I agree with Jason, man. It's time for the Bears to focus on the trenches, and that's what Ben Johnson said in his press conference, guys. He said, "You build from the trenches out." I think that you're finally going to see the Bears do that for the first time in the last 30 years.
My friend's Bond was a third-round pick, 74th overall in 2020.
Yeah, so there you go. Another great linebacker in the NFL who makes splash plays on a weekly basis, who was drafted in the third round.
Guys, really quick, because I have, I always like to bring a nugget every single week. And we're talking about run defense. We signed Dennis Allen. What's his specialty? Stopping the run. So, the nugget of the day, the Bears' Dennis Allen, our new defensive coordinator, holds the NFL record for the longest streak of allowing less than 100 yards rushing in a game. That streak is at 55. Allen's first full season as DC in 2016 until December of 2020.
Dennis Allen, don't fall in love with that streak.
Well, his defense did not allow a single running back over 100 yards. So that's the nugget of the day, folks. Dennis Allen, it's his strength. I love that hire, and I loved when it came out that even before he took this job, Ben Johnson's first call was to Dennis Allen, and not to mention the fact that the first thing he said was, "I want the opportunity to work with Kyler Gordon." So yeah, baby. That makes
what? Ben Johnson has said that look, guys, I purposely went out of my comfort zone, outside of my circles, to look for guys to bring in. Now, you got Antoine Randall, which is in a circle, but a lot of the hires that he has have not been in his circle. He called them and asked them and talked to them and got them in. And hearing that stat, that seems to me like one of the big stats that made Ben Johnson say, "This is why I want this guy," because two things you got to do. It's really old school. You have to establish the run and you got to stop the run.
No, Scotty.
I can tell you this right now, guys. If the Bears don't address the trenches, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, that streak is going to come to an end. The Bears were absolutely abysmal against the run last year, particularly late in the season after losing.
Well, that streak came to an end in 2020.
They actually got to the point where they were allowing over 140 yards per game. They need to address the defensive tackle position. If they don't, that streak will be done. But yeah, I mean, if the Bears get a couple good, maybe sign a defensive tackle free agency and draft one as well, I think you keep that streak alive for sure. I mean, the Bears, remember, guys, the first 8 to 10 weeks of the season, the Chicago Bears were one of the top 10 ranked defenses in the NFL. It kind of all fell apart. And, Jaquan Brisker plays a huge part in the run game as well, man. Jaquan Brisker's a hard hitter, and he has no problem coming up and hitting people, particularly tight ends and running backs. That's that's pretty much how he knocked himself out. I expect him to become back healthy, even if you got him for the first 4, 5, 6 games. Jaquan Brisker is going to be on this team next year, and he's going to play a big role in.
I want to touch on this thing for Brandon here, saying the Raiders are positioning themselves to offer $49 million to Bolton. There was a report out today that Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady spent the entire weekend at Matthew Stafford's estate in Montana, and they hung out. And he's trying to lure Stafford to Las Vegas. So we'll see how that goes. Just something I heard today.
Don't you guys just love all the news that comes out right around the draft combine?
You
see all this stuff like they're like, "Oh man, Tom Brady loves Ashton Gianti. Ashton Gianti to number 6 to the Raiders." You're like, "Yeah, that's somebody probably made that up."
To go to the Bears.
Somebody made that up.
Yeah.
Hey, really quick, The chat, you guys are absolutely killing it, dude, today. I love the comedy that's
Turd!
going on there. Welcome into the show, Turd Ferguson. You guys are awesome, awesome, awesome. So I'm just going to do this really quick for you
Michael
all.
Bolton is an ass clown. Great.
Thank you guys so much, man. Bringing a little light to a relatively dead time in the NFL, but not really, because there's things going on. Everybody's lying right now. So
Jason, that was an Office Space reference. You got that right.
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
So
that's why I said
nobody
he
likes
was an
Michael
ass clown.
Nobody
That's
likes
also an Office Space.
Is that the next line in the movie? Yeah, nobody likes Michael Bolton.
As we move on here, ladies and gentlemen, this we're going to move into some wide receiver, free agent wide receivers, and some wide receivers that we're going to draft. And on Monday's show, when we'll all be back together for the first time in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a combine show. So that should be really fun as we break down all these guys that we've been talking about on Wednesdays. We're going to be able to shift and talk about what they did at the combine this weekend. That should be a lot of fun. And as I said at the top, Star Chicago Sports, we're going to be going under a transition period here. New logos, new website, new this, new that. We're going to explode onto the scene with a bunch of new stuff for you guys. Sometime here within the next 30 days, we've been working on it very, very hard with a bunch of different people, and we appreciate everyone's effort that's been putting in. I know the Duplessis older brother, was able to get us a fresh looking logo that we can't wait to show y'all. I mean, it is spectacular.
Yep.
Yeah. So can't wait for that, and can't wait to bust out this new website and be connected with this community even more than what we already are. Thank you guys so much, and look forward to a bright future here at 4-Star Chicago Sports. And as we get into these wide receivers, let's pay some bills. This segment's going to be sponsored by River Street Tavern, 102 North River Street. Great place for food, friends, parties. They have an awesome party room upstairs. If you guys need a little get-together place, holds about 150 people, something like that, Kyle. It's a really fantastic spot. So check out River Street Tavern, 102 North River Street. You might even find this knucklehead on the top right hanging out there one of the days that you pop in.
There's a small chance we don't know Brennan's availability, and he's still trying to figure it out. But there's a small chance you could see Brennan and I behind the bar on March 15th, the St. Patrick's Day.
Who's who? You don't know.
Wait, your brother?
Know, man.
Your brother's gonna guest bartend?
Well, it's still a work in progress. He hasn't made a decision yet, but there's a small chance that could happen. Real quick, guys, I want to say what's up to Aunt Mass. Thanks for joining the show. Aunt Mass is one of our most loyal listeners. Also, real quick, I'd like to give a shout out to Breaking News Bruce, our producer and one of our moderators here. We really appreciate the work he does behind the scenes. Appreciate Jason joining us for, what is this? This is your fifth Wednesday in a row now, huh?
I might be a regular.
5-Star Chicago Sports. You get the White Sox.
What's going on, Ed Nance? Thanks for joining us, brother. So we're not going to spend too much time. The free agent class is okay. We know we're not signing a top free agent here. Just throw them up. You got T. Higgins, Godwin, Diggs, Cooper, Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Hollywood Brown, Darius Slayton, Cavante Turpin, and Dynami Brown. The guy out of this list, if you were going to sign someone cheap for me, would be Dynami Brown. A nice slot receiver, speed, showed some good hands during the season last year with Jaden Daniels. It has had a lot of explosive plays as well for the Washington Commanders.
Wow.
Good save, buddy.
Yeah.
Is there anybody on this top 10 free agent list that you guys are enamored with or like? Or
well, real quick, Sean, I just wanted to get this comment. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the Camel Toe Inspector says if you guys ever find yourselves in California, you got a place there at. I really appreciate that, Camel. Maybe we'll take you up on that someday, man. I would love to get out to California at some point. But yeah, Sean, for me personally, the top 5 guys there, from DeAndre Hopkins over to the left, T. Higgins, 1 through 5. And Keenan Allen, you can throw him in there too. It's not realistic. The Bears just gave DJ Moore a $110 million contract. They drafted Rome Dunes at number 9. there's already too much investment, too much money in that wide receiver room. You're not going to see any huge splash signings like that. But yeah, Marquise Brown or Diami Brown are certainly guys I would keep my eye on for the Chicago Bears, because those are kind of the guys.
Yeah.
That's kind of the skill set the Bears are missing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We all thought it was going to be Tyler Scott, a guy who could stretch the field, that Xavier Worthy type player. It seems like Tyler Scott has fallen out of favor in the Chicago Bears locker room. But yeah, Marquise Brown or Diami Brown, those are both guys who I could see filling that role. But once again, Sean, not to say I don't like these guys, and these guys wouldn't contribute to making the Chicago Bears more competitive, but I'd like to see the Bears try to get as young as they possibly can every single year and go try to find a guy like a Diami Brown in the
yeah.
Especially at a premium position, which is going to cost a premium. Like, who doesn't want T. Higgins on their team? Like, everybody does, but who wants to pay the money? You know what I mean? It's too much.
The one thing for $200 million contracts at wide receiver right now. It's just that the Bears aren't in a position to do that. They still need to build an offensive line and defensive line.
And here's one. Foster covers. I'm going to sign Tutu Atwell and put him in the slot. 1.3 on a prove-it deal. I think he is underrated. Speed, and look at what he did in L.A. Tutu Atwell wouldn't be bad, and I believe Tutu Atwell could play in the return game as well.
I like Tutu Atwell. It's a good comment, Foster. He's a guy who kind of slipped my mind a little bit. But yeah, Tutu Atwell is an impact player. He's not going to set the world on fire. He's not going to have 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. But that guy, he does what they ask of him. And the Bears need more players like that on this roster. I mean, are you guys out on Tyler Scott personally?
I don't know. I would like to see them. I want to know what Ben Johnson thinks of him. That's what I want.
Yeah, me too. Or Randall L. I would love to be in that locker or in that meeting room when they're evaluating Tyler Scott.
Really quick off subject. Shout out to the Cubs, looking good out the gate. Go Cubs, killing the non-important games. A little bit of news. We're going to obviously, Kyle and I will get to this on Saturday. The unfortunate news is it does look like we won't have Matthew Shaw to debut against the $1 billion Dodgers in Japan. I don't think he's even going to make the trip. So, but that will be for the Northside 9 this Saturday. Kyle and I are going to put together a nice show. So come check us out on Saturday morning if you're not doing anything.
Good news is the Cubs hit a baseball off of this White Sox center fielder's head the other day, so that was pretty good.
Vernon says Randall is going to fix Tyler Scott. If you can fix Jameson Williams, you can fix anyone.
Here, you want to know the truth. You want to know the truth about Tyler Scott is if you go back and look at his college tape at Cincinnati, I believe he was part of that undefeated team, and he practiced against Sauce Gardner repeatedly, and he was able to cook Sauce Gardner in college. There's practice film of him cooking him. So then you go back and you look at his college tape. This guy didn't only excel in college. He went to that elite wide receiver school before the draft to improve his craft. There's a video out there on it, and I watched the whole thing. That's why I thought the Bears got a steal here. But then the Bears never have utilized him on the field. So was this coaching why he couldn't get on the field? You know, they're not recognizing talent, just not using him right. I don't know. I'm not out on Tyler Scott yet. I want to actually see what this guy can do, because I'll tell you, maybe he's weak at the line of scrimmage. He's got bad hand placement. He can't fight off, the DB to gain leverage. I don't know. I don't know, because we've never heard anything about him. So I'm definitely not.
One thing that we've heard Ben Johnson talk about numerous times, guys, since being hired by the Chicago Bears is everybody on the field has to block. So I think that's probably going to dictate who makes this roster and who doesn't. They need every single player on the field to block downfield. Wide receivers, tight ends, offensive linemen, obviously. But yeah, if Tyler Scott or one of these guys fringe roster players, I guess you call them, if they're not willing to put their body in harm's way and make blocks, they're probably not going to make this roster.
Okay. I'm going to, as we go through some of these receivers, the typical, just really quick, the typical height of an NFL receiver is around 6 feet tall, most falling within the range of 5'10" to 6'2", depending on whether they play primarily in the slot or on the outside of the field. That is the average height being just slightly over 6 feet. So as we're breaking these guys down, we're saying 5'11", 6'1", 6'2". That's kind of a gauge of where NFL receivers are right now. You obviously have an X, Y, and Z. Your Z is usually on the stronger side of the formation. Your X is on the weaker side of the formation. Your Y is typically your tight end who can block and receive passes depending on the play. And the thing that we're going to be looking for in this draft for the Chicago Bears is a nice slot receiver, who lines up on the offensive line, is usually faster, quicker than the players that are on the outside of the ball. So with that being said, who wants to take the first wide receiver?
Kyle?
Jason, start us off, man.
All
Got us
right.
off, fire away.
I'll start off with a guy that I love. I'll save my best for last, but the guy that I really liked, and he's probably in the top 10 on pretty much every list you're going to see. Is
Top 10 of the
Matthew
draft
Golden.
or top 10 receivers?
What's that?
Top 10 of the draft or top 10 receivers?
Not top 10 in the draft, top 10 receivers. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to go top 10. Is Matthew Golden, a 21-year-old kid out of Texas. There's a couple of actually Longhorn receivers on this list here that are actually pretty decent. But, he's got okay size, 6 foot, 195, kind of speedy at a 4.38 40, but not too speedy. It's kind of where you would want him to be. He had under 1,000 yards with 9 touchdowns. But if you watch his film, he's a football player, dude. When he gets the ball, he's a running back. There's constantly a stiff arm or a spin move or lowering his shoulder and just ramming a dude. The stats say he has okay hands on Draft Buzz at 76%. But watch it though. That looked like an awesome catch to me. It looks like his hands are fine. I think he's actually much better than the stats really show because he is a football player. He is one of those guys that's going to block, like you said, Kyle. His route running ability is excellent. I think in short and long runs, he's at 90 and 91% respectively on Draft Buzz. And a deep threat of 91%. You wish he could be a better blocker, but again, I think if you ask this kid to block, he'll block. He'll do it. You just got to show him how and why and when to block. Maybe that can be taught. I think it probably can, and I think hopefully, if we draft him, I don't know that we will, but I think we have the coaching staff that can. Honestly, I think he's just a really good football player. I think he's going to go mid-second round, so it could be one of those guys that the Bears pick. I think they're probably leaning more towards a slot guy, but I like Matthew Golden. I think he's a football player. I think all of his teammates are going to love him. I think Bears fans, if they draft him, are going to love him. Whoever he goes to, the fan base is going to love this kid because he plays football. He doesn't care. If I get hurt, I get hurt. I'm going to play.
When it comes to Matthew Golden, I said, I don't know if you guys were watching that video, but you noticed that radius and the body control that he had, man. That guy, Golden catches everything. He can win downfield. He tracks the ball well. This guy, I agree with you, Jason. He also played 23.9% of his snaps out of the slot, 76% wide. So he can move around the field. Obviously, it seems though he does feel a little bit more comfortable playing wide than he does on the inside. He had 118 slot snaps to 376 snaps out wide. But the one thing that you can't argue with is this dude's an absolute burner, man. He hits that top gear in a flash. He catches defenders flat-footed. This guy is going to be in the right situation. He's going to be a very, very, very good player. He does have a couple injury concerns, some medical concerns. He had some surgery back a couple of years ago. I just had this written down. I'm sorry. They have him going right now between 17 and 30. His medical history does raise some durability concerns. He had foot surgery in 2023 and previously had a rib injury, limiting some of his availability through his college career. But I agree with you, Jason. This guy absolutely jumps off the screen. I love everything about Matthew Golden. He's going to be really, really good.
Dude, go watch a highlight reel on YouTube. You're going to love it. They're like 10, 15 minutes long. And it's lowering the shoulder, spin move, stiff arm, running through guys. Dude, you're going to love it. You're going to be like, why can't we have this guy?
Yeah, Draft Buzz has projected as a mid-second round pick. He's projected to be an outside receiver. He had 58 receptions for 987 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. He ran a 4.38 40, so he's a burner for sure, guys. There's a couple more of his strengths here. It says shows advanced understanding of route tempo, masterfully changing speeds to set up breaks and create separation, natural hands catcher who could contort his body and adjust to off-target throws while maintaining control through the contact. Sean, you just showed a video that showed a really good example of that. Mm-hmm. Some of his weaknesses here, it says his frame can use additional bulk to better absorb contact and maintain positioning against physical NFL corners. His concentration drops pop up more than you'd like to see, and blocking effort and technique needs significant refinement. But yeah, this is definitely a guy. I expect him to fall somewhere in in the early beginning of the second round. But yeah, this is definitely a guy the Bears keep their eyes on if they were willing to take a receiver that high. Obviously, guys, we're going to go through all these receivers for you. We're not saying we expect the Bears to draft a receiver in the first 2 rounds. We're just going to give you guys all the options, and we'll get into some of those later round guys later on in the show here.
We're going to get into
the Bears.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just guys. The guys who drafted in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. We'll get to some of those guys later. The guys we think the Bears have a realistic chance of drafting this season. But sorry, Sean, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off, man. We're going to get into this guy right now because Scotty and Brandon can't keep it in their pants over this guy.
I've seen that. He's seen his name pop up a bunch. People love this guy.
Xavier Restrepo. And you know what? I know Brandon was a big-time Miami guy this year. He watched every single game. I know he loves this guy. But there's a lot of reasons to love this guy. Look at that drop rate down to 2.8%. He played primarily in the slot. This guy is a big-time need, for the Chicago Bears. This guy is someone you could probably get in the 3rd round and fill a desperate need. Xavier Restrepo, he's as crafty as they come. He's a pure slot receiver who excels at creating separation and catching the ball. As I just stated, a 2.8% drop rate. He's reliable as they come. He has a 61.5 contested catch rate. He had elite production in 23 and 24. He's savvy, reliable. He's a natural separator. He's rock solid at 200 pounds. Coming out of the slot this year, he had 58 catches for 1,038 yards. That was 3rd in the FBS. He only had 2 drops and averaged 7.3 yards after the catch out of the slot. He's a dynamic safety blanket that Caleb Williams absolutely would need. He's going to make an immediate impact, in my opinion, in the NFL. You can see his quickness in his tape, his savvy, the way he moves. He shows exceptional concentration in traffic, consistently making tough catches through contact. He displays an advanced pre-snap recognition skills, consistently identifying blitzes and adjusting his routes to become the immediate hot read. Guys, if there's anything the Chicago Bears needed, everything I just said is something that this offense could implore with this guy. He does have a couple of weaknesses that we'll touch on. He has a limited physical profile at 5'10", restricts his ability to win consistently on the outside, but that's not where the Bears want him. So
200 pounds though. 200 pounds though. This is not like a little guy.
But having him not having one of his weaknesses, saying he can't win consistently on the outside, is not something I believe the Bears were going to be asking for him anyways. They did say, scouts do say he has a below average catch radius due to his shorter arms. It will make it more challenging on target throws outside of his frame. I didn't really see that either. I didn't like some of the weaknesses, but I will tell you this. For me, Restrepo is a guy like Julian Edelman, and I believe a couple of scouts said this is a perfect comp for him, was Julian Edelman. He's a technician who turns the slot into an art form. His footwork in tight spaces is masterful, particularly on option routes where he absolutely can carved up ACC defensive backs. His final 6 games of the season, from midseason on, he averaged 8.2 catches and showed exactly how that he could translate that. He works underneath. He sets up defenders and creates constant escape valves for his quarterback. Again, this is exactly what we need. They said his maximum skill set would be in a West Coast system. So, but they also said his understanding of leverage and spacing reminded some other scouts of watching Cooper Kupp. This guy, for me, please Bears, if he's there, snatch this guy up.
Yeah, and another thing about Xavier Restrepo, and something that Brennan made a comment about earlier with Tyler Scott, is this is a guy who brings that deep threat variable to the Chicago Bears. It was his highest grade of anything hands, short receiving, intermediate routes. Deep threat was 92%, one of the best in this draft. He runs a 4.5 40, so not a burner by the today's NFL standards, but a guy who can run fast for sure. And then you guys, he was the 3rd of all. I did about 20 receivers. I broke down. He was the 3rd highest QB rating when targeted at 126.9. So, I mean, this guy gets open and he doesn't drop a lot. So definitely
he's a reception machine, 154 receptions in 2 years.
And Sean's right. It says projected late 2nd round to early 3rd round. That's right in that Bears sweet spot, right? Yeah. That's right in that sweet spot where the Bears could afford to draft a receiver if they absolutely believe they need one. Yeah. That's where you would put him. Sean, I'm just going to get one out of the way real quick if you guys don't mind. I do this every week, guys. Sean and Jason break down the guys who are probably more realistic possibilities. I'm just going to break down the top dog here, the Tatoria McMillan, 6'5", 212 pounds from Arizona, projected a top 5 pick. He had an overall rating of 90.2.
Kyle,
he is
one
an
second.
outside. What's that?
Kyle, one second. As we get into T-Mac here, this is his film Burning, who's supposed to be the best player in this draft, Travis Hunter. Go ahead, Kyle. Sorry.
Yeah, he has an overall rating of 90.2. That was the highest of any wide receiver in this draft. He is, by all accounts, guys, an outside X receiver. He had 84 receptions for 1,319 yards and 8 touchdowns. He runs a 4.5 40. His quarterback rating when targeting was 110.7. He has a intermediate route efficiency rating of 92, a deep threat route efficiency rating of 92. This guy is, by all accounts, going to be a stud in the NFL, guys. I think he's going to go in the top 15 of the NFL draft. Some of the scouting report strengths here is he has remarkable position and versatility, thriving as both an X receiver and powerful slot with fluid movement skills, rare for his frame and size. Displays advanced route running prowess with diverse tree, particularly excelling on whip routes, crossers, and in cuts across the middle. Demonstrates elite ball tracking ability and timing on deep throws. So this is the guy who sounds like he's that Devontae Adams, will run across the middle, not afraid to get hit, will do anything the quarterback asks. This guy is a guy who's 6'5", 212 pounds. He's a big frame. He's a guy that gets open a lot. Some of the weaknesses here, guys, it's kind of nitpicking, but lacks elite top-end speed to consistently threaten vertically against NFL corners. You know, they said the same thing about guys like Mike Evans. That's not something you really want to buy too much into. A good receiver is a good receiver no matter how his speed, as long as he's not like super slow. Can improve explosiveness off the line of scrimmage, sometimes telegraphing routes against coverage defenders. And his last weakness here is release package needs expansion to consistently beat press coverage at the next level. But I mean, you guys, this guy is the real deal. He is going to be one of the best receivers in the NFL in a couple of years. I don't think the Bears have a shot in hell at drafting this guy. I don't think they want to. I think they have bigger priorities to fill in the first round. But man, wherever this guy lands, guys, you know, maybe a team like the Chargers, somebody like that, he is going to be a huge contributor for them, and quickly.
I will say this, and I've said this before in our texts. I believe that Tet McMillan is Michael Evans. He's going to be a little bit more of an athletic Michael Evans. And I'm just going to give you their combine numbers. Tet 4.5 40, 6 foot, 215. Mike Evans 4.5 40, 6'5", 231. He's the elite of elite with his ball skills, guys. I mean, this guy is very special. I was actually, when I was digging into him, I had one scout that says they generally see a lot of Justin Jefferson in his game. I'm not going to go there, but I will say McMillan is a cheat code, man. His deep double moves, they're unfair. And I know Jason isn't the biggest fan of him, but he's getting comps to T. Higgins, Drake London, Justin Jefferson. I honestly think
those are all three different players.
Guys, I don't want to interrupt you guys. I'm sorry, real quick. I have to address this comment because this is the first time I have seen White Ghost in the chat here.
White Ghost.
Ghost, thank you so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. White Ghost says we should pick him if he falls to 10. The draft is deep on defense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just the Bears have a pretty good receiving core right now, and they need so much help on the offensive line and defensive line, and probably in the running back room and Ben Johnson's eyes. I don't see him as a realistic possibility, but man, it'd be nice to have your number 3 receiver be T-Mac. This guy is an absolute beast, dude. A beast, dude.
I'll tell you.
I have something here that says otherwise.
Well, really quick, T-Mac posted 2.8 yards per route run in back-to-back seasons. And guys, the 2.8 more indicates that this player is gaining an average of yards per route run. It's a metric used on the receiver's efficiency. He's been among the best in college over the past couple of years, and I actually believe I have a thing put together for that. Go ahead, Jay. What were you going? I know you've been dying to tear down T-Mac, so go ahead. Go tear him down. He is. Here it is versus man coverage.
He's good, but he's not like the T-Mac just isn't that good, dude. Look at it. Here's his best games in 2024.
Go ahead.
Against West Virginia, New Mexico, Texas Tech, and Kansas State. wow, he's just lighting the world on fire. This guy's destroying people. And if you really watch the tape and pay attention, it's not his moves that are causing him to get separation. It's guys falling over, guys in the wrong coverage, guys running the wrong direction, because he's playing Texas Tech and Kansas State, dude. He's not going to be as good as people say he is. I hope he is. Thank God he's going to go way before the Bears pick at 10, because some idiot's going to pick him instead of us. Thank God.
Well, remember, Jason, a lot of people last year said a lot of easy throws and touchdowns fell into the hands of Brian Thomas because of defensive mistakes, and that guy came to the NFL and absolutely blew up. So I mean,
and went to a team that just nothing but throw the ball 8,000 yards a season.
Unfortunately, we can only judge them based off of the competition they play. They don't choose their schedule. I mean, I do believe T-Mac's going to make an impact in the NFL. So, but I'm not saying he's going to be the best receiver in football. But I think this guy is.
Can I tell you guys this really quick? I read as I was going through his scouting reports and stuff. I read yesterday or the day before that the Jacksonville Jaguars are seriously considering taking him at 6, I believe they draft. Can you imagine T-Mac and Brian Thomas Jr.? Forget about it, boys. That's going to be uncoverable, and I might draft Trevor Lawrence in a fantasy draft if that's the case. I don't know.
Sean, please do it, boobs, please.
As a backup.
We heard you. We got you on tape, buddy.
White Ghost also says we can't stop the run. I want us to take 2 defenders to start off the draft because we cannot stop the run. Yeah, it wouldn't be surprised at all, White Ghost, if the Bears decided to draft a defensive tackle or defensive end at number 10 there. Yeah, only time will tell.
Mason Graham might be there. That'd be a great pick.
Oh God! Don't get my hopes up. Jeez.
I'm gonna pick. I got 2 guys that are somewhat later in the draft. Not too much later, probably 3rd round. But again, this is a slot guy. This is a slot guy that I kind of watched him and started to fall in love with him. His name is Jalen Nolan, and if I could really quick get this media asset up here, and if I can find it. This is we forgot to get our producer logged in under admin, so I'm kind of shuffling around, but we got you next time, Bruce. Don't worry. So here's our production sheet here, and if we're going to be speaking of one man right now, he's going to be down here, Jalen Nolan. He played 73% of his snaps in the slot. This dude is an absolute burner. He's an intriguing prospect who projects as a starting level slot receiver day 1 in the NFL. He's a versatile receiver that can line up inside and out in college and regularly excelled picking up yards after the catch. Noel has great size, and we're going to throw up a little video here of Mr. Noel. Uh-oh.
Yeah, they need to change the music on.
Yeah, that we're not going to play that. We're not going to play that. We're just going to
really making it exciting.
It says Noel has great short area quickness and is a seasoned route runner and allows him to create separation and throwing windows for his quarterback. It's competitive, durable. Noel has one of the highest football IQs in the 2025 draft, and he will definitely carve out a starting role on the next level. He had 80 catches for 1,194 yards, 8 touchdowns to finish off his senior season. This guy is absolute fire. He is the fastest, the second fastest in this draft. No, excuse me. At the Senior Bowl, he was 6th among all players and the second fastest wide receiver. His top speed topped out at 21 miles per hour. He uses incredible leverage, speed out to body control, explosion out of breaks. He has great hands, radius, catch radius. He's advanced and understanding and how to find the soft spots in zone coverage while setting up into throwing lanes. He accelerates. He's got incredible afterburners. He goes from 0 to 60. His burst allows him to break up off the line and leaves defenders in their dust. He has sharp, crisp cuts, and he's very sticky off the edge. This guy, my friends, seems to be a very, very dangerous weapon, and that's exactly what I wrote here. Noel's a dangerous weapon. He's got written all over him. Vertical slot receiver with deep ball tracking ability that just jumps off the film. The way he stresses defenses downfield with his modest frame. This isn't a typical underneath slot guy. But when he gets a clean release, defenders are immediately in survival mode. Watch how he manipulates safeties with his eyes before breaking into wide open space on deep posts and seams. That's NFL level route craft that he has in college already. Teams that draft Noel in early day 3 range, likely the 4th round, will be getting a pro-ready separator with elite route technique and return game value. This guy, and sorry guys, I didn't mean to leave that up there. This guy actually, and I'm sorry, I can't play that clip. It's pretty annoying. I thought I took the voice off and I didn't, so my bad. Google some of his film, dude. It is unbelievable how fast this guy is, how fast he gets off the line. They did say in a couple of his weaknesses, he has a little problem, fighting off the line. So if he lines it outside, hand checking with the defenders is a problem. But if the Bears are looking for a guy who's going to line up in the slot that can be explosive, you might want to take a look at Jalen Noel.
Well, Sean, I love this strength here. Exceptional plant and drivability that leaves defenders grasping at shadows. That's one of my favorite strengths in the entire draft.
That's what you want to hear with
there is one thing he has a weakness with, guys, and this is on draftbuzz.com. It was his hands are rated 82%. Yeah. It says drop concentration appears to be the worst at times. Focus lapses have plagued him with a concerning 7.2% career drop rate that will raise everybody's eyebrows in the draft room. Yeah, so that is one concern with him. But here's another guy that, like you said, on 5'9", 196 pounds, the guy had fucking 80 receptions, 1,194 yards, and 8 touchdowns, runs a 4.540. 4.4540. This guy he's going to be an impact player in the NFL as well.
Yes, and Foster, that is Jalen Noel from Iowa State, sir. Absolutely. I actually, I'm a Big 12 guy. I watch a lot of Big 12 football, so I watch this guy a lot.
You're a Big 12 guy?
Yeah. You know what? Shocker, huh?
Hey, you know what? I actually got a guy that I think is better, and he's actually at Iowa State as well.
Go ahead.
Jaden Higgins. He's not a slot guy, all right, but he's 6'4", 217. Doesn't have a
sorry, Jason, who did you say?
Time. What's that?
Jaden Higgins.
Jaden Higgins. 6'4", 217. He's not going to blow you out of the water with his 40 time at 4.55, but, I wouldn't let it really, fool you. He's got 87 receptions in 2024 for 1,183 yards, 9 touchdowns. He really kind of blossomed after transferring after his sophomore year from Eastern Kentucky. In 23, his first year at Iowa State, he had 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then, of course, just really flourished in 24 under Matt Campbell's Cyclone offense. Honestly, if you watch his highlights, I see him more as like a red zone, inside 35 to the end zone type of guy. He's just big. He uses his size to catch the ball really, really well. He's going to be taller than just about every DB out there. He's just a stud. I mean, if you really look at his metrics off of Draft Buzz, this is what really will get your blood flowing. That, and they actually say one of his comps is Andre Yoshevas, so that's a pretty good guy. But here's his hands rating is 93%. His short receiving rating is 94%. His intermediate routes rating is 97%. His deep threat rating is 96%. I mean, the dude's in the tops of everything. Everything. Not a slot guy, so I don't know if the Bears are really going to be looking at him. I just was looking at receivers. I'm like, dude, this kid's a stud.
Kyle, what you got on him?
On him?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have anything on Higgins. I actually didn't have him on my list here, man.
Yeah, I actually forgot to look him up as well. So I do apologize. What else you got is some weaknesses there on
Higgins.
Mr. Higgins.
He's not very good blocking. They'll say that his catch rate isn't really that great, but again, with 84 receptions, they're feeding the ball to him a lot. And I think, again, I don't think he's going to be very crucial when you just received a kickoff and you're on the 30-yard line and you got to move to the other side of the field. He's not going to be your first down guy. What he's going to be is when you're inside that 35 to 30 range to the red zone, he's going to be the guy that's going to be in the end zone in the corner, and you're going to throw it to him, and he's going to catch it, and you got a touchdown. And usually that guy is going to be like your tight end, right, like a Cole Kmet. Yeah. But we have a guy that's almost as big as a tight end at 6'4", doesn't have the weight behind him because he's got to sprint down the field every play. But to me, that's what if you draft this kid, that's what you draft him for, is for that reason. 2 score touchdowns. I mean, that's That's literally what you're drafting this kid for. But
well, I do like Iowa State. I do like both receivers from Iowa State. So in Foster covers, DT Walter Nolan. Yes, we talked about him last week, and we really do love Mr. Nolan if he were to fall to the Chicago Bears. Unfortunately, in the latest mock I saw was the Eagles taking him.
yeah,
Like, are you insane? Like, please don't do that. One guy I wanted to get to, because I know this is another one. Your brother and I actually have had many conversations about this gentleman, and it's a realistic opportunity that the Bears could get him, because he's already met with the Chicago Bears twice. This is Pat Bryant, Illinois receiver. Man, he's physical, runs routes with a purpose, and he's one of the best blocking wide receivers in this draft. Pat Bryant, he's one of my favorites, dude. He's extremely savvy route runner. This guy, there's a reason that the Bears, and I'm not 100% sure why the Bears have met with him, but they have met with Pat twice. So whatever that means, this was a game I put together a little film against Rutgers. He had 7 catches for 197, and towards the end, you'll see the game winner that he had, and I believe it was like a 64-yard catch. But he has a 1.8% drop rate, 70% contested catch rate. He checks a lot of boxes, man. He's masterful at manipulating leverage against defensive backs, showing advanced understanding of how to set up breaks and create separation through route stems. The natural hands catcher with massive catch radius, who plucks the ball away from his frame with confidence and controls through contact. Devastating on the boundary routes, where he can work the outside, displaying elite awareness. Toe tapping ability will translate immediately on Sundays. He brings that dog mentality. You know, as we said, actually I exaggerated a little bit. He finished with a 66.7 contested catch rate. Jump ball situations are another place where he excels. His weaknesses: lacks explosion and get off at the line to scrimmage, and his ability to threaten defensive backs. Release package needs significant development, relies too heavy on his pure athleticism against press coverage rather than technique. Telegraphs route intentions on shorter patterns, particularly on comeback routes where his hips and foot speed can be sluggish. He has a lean frame, can lead to steering off his path against physical coverage. He needs to add some functional strength to maintain route integrity. Overall, Bryant will thrive in a system favoring ISO routes and boundary work, where he's technical savvy and late can create natural advantages. He's advanced in understanding of leverage and route running nuances. He fits his fit is seamlessly into a time-based offense to create one-on-one matchups outside of the numbers. He lacks elite separation skills, but his proficiency in winning through technique and body positioning establishes him as a legit X receiver at the next level. This guy has met with the Chicago Bears twice. I don't know if they're planning on using, right now he's projected as a 5th round pick. He's a 147th overall ranked prospect in this draft, 18th at the wide receiver position. He played 44 college games and 1,872 snaps. So I really love this guy, man. He's labeled as an outside X, but he also did have 9 catches for 227 yards in the slot. So he can also be moved around. I don't know if this is the ideal guy that you want to draft for a slot, but it's a guy that you can definitely draft, let's say, for some depth while he develops with Antoine Randall L. So as we get through that, what are your guys' thoughts on Mr. Pat Bryant out of ILL?
Yeah, they're saying if he can improve his 40 time at the combine, he'll actually move up in the draft and probably end up somewhere in the 4th round. He has a 4.56 40. It's about 29th percentile. It's not great, but yeah, Sean, I mean, he is traditionally going to, in the NFL, look like he's going to be an outside X receiver. So maybe the Bears would have to just try to move DJ Moore inside or something like that. This is not a guy who's played this slot often, but by all accounts, he's a good player. He's the guy who can make an impact on the team immediately. They say he's one of the most NFL readies in the draft, so that's always a good sign. So it shows real savvy working back. The quarterback plays when plays break down. That's something the Bears did not have a lot of last year. Refined understanding of spacing and timing in the red zone. evidenced by his program record tying 10 touchdown grabs in 2024. I've said this before on the show, guys. You can talk about competition all you want, but anybody who can get double-digit touchdowns in a collegiate season is probably a player who's just good at football.
Yeah,
this is the guy who can do that. Yeah, and the Big Ten is certainly some stiff competition. It would be, and we've seen Ryan Poles steer towards these guys who are from Illinois, from this area, even in terms of when it comes to some of the guys in the coaching staff. So,
did he grow up in Illinois?
That I don't know.
I don't know. I can probably see if it's.
I can find out.
Here. I don't know if they tell
you. Just don't see very many, and hear a lot about guys from Illinois playing in the
NFL.
He
was born in Jacksonville.
No,
that's why he's good at football.
Duval.
Yeah, but somewhat of an imposing frame at 6'3". They have him listed here at 6'2", but other websites have him listed at 6'3", 210. So, yeah, this is definitely a guy who can contribute to the Bears for sure.
He looked really good this season, man. And this is someone, I think your brother and we've been talking about him off and on for most of the football season this year, Pat Bryant. And it would be nice to have, he's not a local kid because he's from Jacksonville, but he chose Illinois to go to college. So you keep him here. Obviously, the weather doesn't bother him. Some players just like it warm. Some players like it, So I would probably be pretty happy if he was still around in the 5th round and the Bears went and got him. Something tells me that he won't.
Yeah.
And yes, Brandon, you are correct. Brian has a tattoo for every one of the friends he's lost in recent years. 4. That's rough. This guy's had a rough upbringing, and that brings us to another guy. Jason, do you want to take this away for another gentleman who might have been adopted?
Yes, actually, he's my favorite dude. he actually wasn't officially adopted, but he's got a really good story. We'll get to that in just a quick sec. But Tez Johnson, the Oregon Duck. He's only 5'9" and 156 pounds, but I think Worthy is 5'11" and 172. Tank Dell's 5'10" and 165. So, there is a model and a case to say that, smaller wide receivers can work. This guy's also in the slot, so you're not going to have big, tall, giant guys in the slot. But he clocked on Draft Buzz with a 4.33 40. We'll see what happens in the combine here. But, had 83 receptions, 898 yards, and 10 touchdowns in 24. Also had a really good 2023 with 86 receptions, 1182, and 10 touchdowns. So, the kid is not a fluke. He's durable. He plays like every down. Watch his tape like we're watching right now. Like every play, he's like 2 or 3 moves. He's just super athletic. It's a spin move. It's a juke move. It's a double move off the line. I'm going to get to his scouting report in just a minute, but I think he's the type of guy that Ben Johnson loves. I don't want to say a gadget guy. I hate saying that because then you think of like Tariq Cohen that never really worked out. But he just might be what Tyler Scott was supposed to be. We'll see what happens with Tyler Scott. He's got great hands, great route running. His release off the line to begin his routes is like elite level. It's just really hard to jam him up because you go to hit him and he's not there anymore. We'll see how it goes in the NFL level, against some of these bigger NFL DBs. But, just watch his tape, man. He's fun to watch. Again, not a great blocker, but at his size, other than a little chip block, I don't know how much he's really going to do for you in the blocking game. So his dad died when he was like 14 or 15, and his mom had a bunch of problems and issues with him. So he met Bo Nix playing in college or playing in high school, rather. And then basically his mom went to Mr. Patrick Nix and said, hey, this kid's got some problems. I know your son and my son get along really well. He was really just supposed to go there for like a day or two, or maybe a couple hours. See what's going to happen. He stayed there for 6 years. So it was like his adopted family. He walked in. I think his words were, man, I love this place. I just feel like home. And they have a big family too. They're not like, they got one other kid and it's Bo Nix. They have like 4, 5, 6 kids. There's a lot of kids in there. I just think it's a really good story, and he's a baller. You know what I mean? Especially when you can grow up with a pro quarterback as your brother. I'm sure they're constantly talking, thinking, playing football all day long. So, but here's the scouting report, dude. And if you don't get excited about it, you're dead. Crafty route technician who manipulates defensive leverage with masterful tempo changes and deceptive head fakes, especially devastating on option routes from the slot. Electric acceleration and change of direction skills make him a yards after catch nightmare. turns quick hitches into chunk plays regularly. Shows exceptional spatial awareness against zone coverage, consistently finding soft spots and presenting clear throwing windows for his quarterback. Vertical route running chops belie his size, consistently stacks defensive backs and tracks the deep ball like a center fielder. Creates instant separation with explosive lateral cuts that leave defenders grabbing air, particularly lethal on shallow crosses and option routes. Natural return man, that's right, he also returns the ball quite well. Translates to offensive creativity, meaning he sees the open field really, really well. Makes the first man miss consistently and shows outstanding field vision in space. Exceptional production across multiple offenses, proves scheme versatility, meaning he didn't start and play for Oregon all 4 years, obviously. I think he played with Troy.
He transferred over.
Yeah. He's projected a third rounder, but honestly, guys, I'm thinking like after this combine, when people start seeing him, not just in this 40 time, but when he starts running drills and you see how just quick everything is on this guy, he's probably going to be a second rounder or even higher. So, if the Bears take a receiver in the second round, this is the dude I want. I want this dude. Love this dude. I don't know how you guys feel. You tell me.
Well, I like the 40 time.
Sorry, not to cut you off, but he's at 85%, 92%, 94, 93. He's just another elite level receiver. So sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. I like the speed. I like the 4.33 40. I mean, he's going to be like that Xavier Worthy type player. One thing I will say, Jay, is that 156 pounds scares me a little bit. Now, I understand that some of these smaller guys make it in the NFL, but a lot of them don't. And we've seen it proven with guys like Tank Dell, who's now had 2 major injuries in back-to-back seasons. It's just tough, man. It's no fault of his own that his frame is only 156 pounds. But you're talking about a guy playing on a field with a bunch of 350, 400 pounders. Eventually, if one of those guys hits you the wrong way, it's going to take its toll. We've seen that with Tank Dell, like I just said. We've seen it with other guys. The smaller guys get hurt in the NFL. That does scare me a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Jason, if you were going to take a chance on a guy this size, he would be the guy to me personally, especially because he's mainly a slot receiver, and that's what the Bears are looking for. But Some of his weaknesses here, it says extremely light frame at 156 pounds, raises durability concerns, will struggle to maintain playing weight through the NFL season's physical toll. Lacks natural hands, catcher instincts, too often lets the ball get inside to his frame, leading to unnecessary bobbles and concentration drops. Physical corners can disrupt timing by pressuring at the line. Needs to release to maximize route running effectiveness. Yeah, I mean, basically, what the only way this guy's going to survive in the NFL, Jason, is if he is just so gitchy that nobody can get a clean hit on him.
When you watch his highlights, he's constantly falling down, and it's almost like he doesn't get hit even when he's getting hit. It's really kind of crazy. Watch him. He sees the hit, recognizes it, he's on the ground already, and then they just jump on top of him. It's really
he should continue to do that. You guys, 156 pounds. That's not just like, most of the time you talk about guys who are in the NFL and you're like, well, this guy's 180 pounds. It's not small. He's an average size man.
Mm-hmm.
He is a below average size man. A grown man to be 156 pounds is a very, very, very light receiver, especially in the NFL. Do you guys, Sean, do you have anything to say about him? Do you mind if I get to the next guy?
Yeah, just the one thing is right now going into the combine, he has the quickest release off the line of any of the wide receivers in this draft. So he'll be the size police will fade him as Kyle just did, but we'll have to see, and I agree with him. I mean, if you think about how Tank Dell got hurt, I mean, he was making a spectacular catch. He didn't even get hit. His leg just whipped and done for the year. So
nothing to do with his size. It's just a freak injury.
So no, but who you got next, Kyle?
Yeah, so a guy I like a lot, guys, and I'm not saying I like him in terms of comparison with the rest of the receivers in this draft, but I mean, we've all admitted that we probably think the Bears will steer towards draft. They don't have a 4th round pick. They'll probably steer towards drafting that number 3 receiver in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. We've already seen them start to have interviews with guys who are projected to go in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. These are the guys we expect them to draft. Right. A guy they should keep their eyes on is Nick Nash. He's 6'2", 198 pounds out of San Jose State. He's projected to be a 5th round pick. He has an overall grading of 83. He's considered a multi-role receiver, so he can play the slot. He had 104 receptions for 1,382 yards and 16 touchdowns. He runs a 4.5 40. This is a guy who's got better every single year in college. QB rating when targeted is 107.1. His best score of everything was his deep threat at 81%. Like I said, guys, this is a 5th round pick, so none of his scores are going to be at the top of the class here. Some of the strengths here: he boasts exceptional football IQ from a quarterback background, consistently identifying coverage spots, soft spots, and exploiting defensive tendencies. He accelerates smoothly into routes and maintains speed through breaks, putting serious stress on safeties and vertical game. He has an imposing 6'3", 195-pound frame, creates substantial mismatches, particularly against smaller slot defenders. So he would probably make a living in the slot. He would probably have to take advantage of those smaller slot guys. We've seen that. Like, people are like, well, if he's that big, he's probably not going to be a slot receiver. You guys, Keenan Allen is by all accounts considered a slot receiver. He is not a small guy by any means necessary. Some of his weaknesses here are technical aspects of positions still developing, particularly footwork and press release situations. Despite good size, still developing functional strength to consistently win through contact. Route mechanics need refinement. Shows tendency to rise up approaching breaks, particularly at intermediate depth. So all those weaknesses I just said, guys, this is all stuff that could be improved, right? Technical aspects of positions still developing. They say he's still developing despite good size, still developing functional strength. Every single one of these weaknesses say still developing. This is a guy who I believe you could get the 5th or 6th round and can make an immediate impact for your team. He's not going to be a guy like Jay said earlier. He's not going to be one of those guys that's on the field for every single snap. But this is a guy you can sneak out there in certain situations, like the Eagles did on 4th and 2 in the Super Bowl, and nobody expected them to throw it on field to Devonta Smith. This is that type of guy. By no means necessary is he a burner, but he's not slow, and he has good size. He can make contested catches. Like I said, a guy who got better every single year in college, had 104 receptions for 1,382 yards and 16 touchdowns last year. I know he plays at San Jose. I know the competition was probably not top of the line, but I mean, if you're talking about a guy they're looking for in a 5th round, this could be one of those guys. This is a guy who I think could have a major impact for the Chicago Bears and certainly fits that Keenan Allen slot receiver type body style. So, I mean, what do you guys? I don't know if you guys done any research on him or not, but he's a guy I would keep my eye on for sure.
I haven't heard any of that. I didn't hear all of it. I heard a lot about most of it, but what I did hear, I did not hear any of that.
What?
I'm so confused, James.
That's a Mark Trestman quote.
Oh.
No, listen, the guy's good. I think in the 5th round, 6th round, you're probably looking for a guy that you're going to have to develop. He's not going to be, obviously,
right.
NFL ready. That's why he's going in the 5th round. They're probably also looking for a guy in those rounds that can also contribute maybe on special teams right away, just so you can get him on the field. I mean, there's no point in drafting a guy if you're going to put him on the practice squad, right? Listen, sometimes those guys in the late rounds, I think this is where like those Wednesday and Tuesday interviews that they do with all the kids at the combine, that's when you find out, like, is this kid going to be coachable? Is he going to take, wide receivers have egos, they all of them think that they're the greatest thing alive, so can he be humble enough to be like, hey, I know you were a starter, but you know what? We got DJ Moore, we got Roman Dunze, you're probably, if you see a couple of snaps this year, it might be okay, but, can you contribute on special teams? Do you want to run back a punt? Do you want to, do you want to learn how to block? Let's see. And that's a guy, and maybe some of these young receivers should learn. If you're going in the 5th and 6th round, you want to get on the field, learn how to block, man. If you can block really well, they'll put you on the field just to block. Sooner or later, you'll get the ball.
Yeah, learn how to play special teams. Nick Nash is a guy I'd keep my eyes on if I'm on the Chicago Bears. I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL.
Yeah, too, and we were talking about these bigger slot receivers. The NFL has converted over to a power slot as a new wide receiver, opposed to the smaller, shifty slots like Edelman and Welker. Players right now in the NFL that are in the power slot position that give a lot of the smaller cornerbacks problems out of the slot. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Godwin, Tyreek Hill, who's not tall in stature, but very dynamic. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy, Keenan Allen. All these guys are playing what the NFL is calling power slot to create mismatches on the back end. So it's something to keep an eye on, and that kind of just leads me into.
Well, Sean, real quick to that point, White Ghost's comments here says, I don't believe the Bears are necessarily looking for a slot. Moore can play slot, and Dunze as well. I think we're looking for a big receiver.
I'm going to tell – I was actually going to bring this up. So, White Ghost, thank you for this lead-in. Does anyone think, and just because they've met with a couple of these taller wide receivers already, that there's a possibility in this offense, when you look at size and stature of Amon-Ra St. Brown and DJ Moore, that maybe DJ Moore this year is going to play a little bit more in the slot and be one of these power slot guys that I was just talking about, and they're going to look to sign a tall receiver to play the X on the outside, opposite Roma Dunze?
The only problem I have with that, I've heard this before, and I'm not saying it's something DJ Moore can't do. The only problem I have with that is I feel like every time we talk about any Chicago sport at all, particularly the Bears, we're talking about moving guys out from where they originally played in college and where they're comfortable and where they've made big plays in the NFL, where they've made their money and trying them somewhere else. Like, guys, eventually I'd like to see the Bears, like if they draft a left tackle, then play him at left tackle. If you draft a left guard, play him at left guard. If you draft a slot receiver, play him in the slot. It just feel like time and time again the Bears are doing these things where they're trying to move all these players all around the field to find the best fit. Well, I mean, these guys played 12, 15 years growing up in the position that they were drafted, most of them in the position they were drafted. You should probably try to keep as much from there as you possibly can. I'm not saying it's something I'm opposed to. I do like that Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think DJ Moore is capable of doing it. But, man, I just think back to that play, the Panthers in overtime where DJ Moore caught that, 70-yard touchdown and took his helmet off, which ultimately lost him the game. But that's just the kind of DJ Moore I'd like to see on the Chicago Bears. Even that play last year, guys, I think it was against the Jaguars where he was clearly wide open down the left sideline, down the left hash, and Caleb Williams underthrew him and it was intercepted. I don't remember if that was the Jaguars. I know it was a terrible team, but that's the DJ Moore I picture in my mind. You'd like to see him run those slant routes too, because he's really good after the catch, yards after the catch. So, But if the Bears fall in love with the receiver who's 6'5" and is better on the outside, and that's the guy they want, then it sounds like they're not going to have an option, right?
And Dabrowski Bear here, I agree. The Bears need a slot, but DJ Moore, in my personal opinion, is more than capable of playing the slot, especially with this new power slot that I just talked about. I think it would be a role. I'm not saying he has to play exclusively there, but I think it's a role in which he could excel.
So when there's 3 receiver sets, you're saying they move him in the slot. 2 receiver sets, he stays on the field on the outside. Yeah, and that's kind of like what Deebo Samuel can do. I've seen a bunch of these guys
create mismatches
who are capable of doing, especially Deebo Samuel, because that guy can move anywhere on the field and he audibles a lot. You never know where he's going to line up. But yeah, like I said, it's not something I'm opposed to. It's not something I don't think he can do. I just like to see the Bears get to the point where you're seeing kind of a set lineup and they're kind of sticking these guys where they think they fit best and keeping them there, particularly in the offensive line. But
Broski Bears agreeing with you here, man. It's a great point. Tired of the Bears coaches, analyst, fans being like, well, we drafted this OT. We're going to move him to OG, or we signed an OG, but we think he can play OC. Stop the nonsense. I agree. 100%.
Yeah,
great point.
It's something the Bears have done a lot. And you guys, to be honest with you, besides the Tevin Jenkins move from left tackle to guard, none of it's really worked out for them. Almost none of it has worked out for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, but we moved Jenkins to guard because he sucked at tackle. It wasn't like, we think he's going to be better at guard.
And with the back,
now we got to use him.
With the back injury, the leverage is much tougher when you're standing tall as opposed to staying in crouch position. I mean, I just feel like Tevin Jenkins, ultimately, that was where he was going to end up no matter what, right, guys? I mean, he wasn't a good left tackle.
No. Yeah, it's kind of what they had projected anyways coming out, for me, again, I said it earlier in the show, I'm not enamored with any of these guys. And really, I mean, maybe if you trade
Sean's
back,
talking about the offensive line.
Yeah, the offensive lineman. If you get a Booker, and you trade back, you get a little extra draft capital, and now you can end up with one of these receivers in the 4th round where you currently don't have a pick. Something along those lines would make me happy, But I agree, Kyle. It's just
and remember, Sean, the higher the pick, the more the value. So if you're trading the 10th pick back, the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft back, you should expect a 2nd or 3rd round in return. Unless you're talking about maybe moving up one spot. I mean, the Eagles gave us a 4th round pick to move from 10 to 9. So if you're talking about moving from 10 to 14, 15, 16, you should expect a 3rd round pick back in that trade. I mean, the top 10 picks in the NFL draft are by far, they are more valuable than any free agent.
And I'll be honest,
down and they turn it into like value.
And I think we talked about this on the Monday show that, we need blue chip players. The Bears lack superstars. And if you can get a superstar at 10, you have to stay there. I mean,
John, do you consider Tyler Booker a blue chip player?
I
mean, do you think there's a chance he's a blue chip player, but he's just not projected top 10 because of his position, guard?
I think that's very possible. I would say depending, and a lot of this is going to get cleared up on March 10th through March 12th, depending on what they do, because just hypothetically speaking, not saying this is what's going to happen, But if the Chicago Bears were to fix their offensive line on March 12th and sign a couple of guys and all of a sudden you're there, I know everyone's, oh, well, then just switch and take a D tackle. Well, if a Mason Graham doesn't fall to you and there's a top wide receiver, say, I don't know, a Mecca Abuka, a top slot who I was just about to break down is way better than, and you got a superstar. We need stars on this team, plain and simple. We lack them. We just don't have them.
And you heard Ben Johnson say that in his press conference. We want as many playmakers on the field as we could possibly get, but we also want guys who are just physical and tough. But yeah, Sean, I agree with you. I mean, if you make that argument, though, you could make an argument that Ashton Gianti, if he's there.
Kyle, you went on mute. Kyle, you're muted.
I know there's background.
Sorry. Yeah, God, you guys know how I feel about. I'm not. I know everyone is all over Gianti, man. I'm just not there. Especially with the value you can get from some of these other guys like Caleb Johnson or Hampton or even Devin Neal in the third or fourth round. I don't know, man. Maybe Gianti's going to prove me wrong. Like T-Mac may prove Jason wrong. I'm just not in love with Gianti that much at all. And, from what I'm hearing is what I heard today is actually the Cowboys are considering trading up so they can get him, which the Cowboys, man, they're ran so poorly, man. They really are. They have so many needs, and you just want this Mercedes-Benz flashy piece of gold instead of trying to fill the holes on your roster. Jerry Jones is fuck the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Gianti would make the most sense on the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Browns. Yeah. I mean, none of these teams really have good running backs under contract. One of those teams is probably going to be the team. Same as the Chargers, if they decide not to extend J.K. Dobbins, bring him back in free agency. All 5 of those teams need running backs. So that's where I would expect Gianti to go. I would even expect, like Sean, like you said, maybe one of those teams trade up, which is rare for a running back. It's pretty rare for a team to trade up for a running back. But yeah, I fully expect the Bears to draft an offensive defensive lineman. We'll see how the draft falls. You never know what's going to happen. One of these receivers might get drafted by the Bears. You never know. But Sean, who do you got next, man?
Really quick, just a broski here. He goes, first things first, we need to see who the Bears sign in free agency. I stand by needing 4 new starters on the O-line. I believe we need 2 new starters on the D-line, but that's more debatable. For me, broski, I honestly think the Bears are going to fill 3 spots, and I do believe we're going to be looking at 2025. Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright as our bookends. Paul speaks too glowingly about Braxton Jones, and I think it's a pride pick for him because it was a 5th round pick.
That's his only good late round pick.
Yeah, dude, I really do. I mean, when he was talking about him in his presser, he had a little bit of glow to him. I mean, that's his gem. Like, so I think they still look for a left tackle, but because of the injury to Josh Simmons, I mean, is there a natural left tackle that you want to draft in this draft?
So showing to that point, we talk about how the Bears tackles are left on an island more than any other players in the NFL, any other team in the NFL. Maybe Ben Johnson likes Braxton Jones. He's like, hey, you just can't leave him by himself all the time, which is nothing wrong with that because that's not the normality. Obviously, if the Bears are doing it more than anybody else, then that's not the normality. You'd like to try to be closer to what those teams are. You get some chip or block help from running backs or tight ends. I think you're going to see a lot more of that with the Bears. We've heard Ben Johnson talk over and over and over again about everybody in the team has to block. Everybody in the team has to block. You're going to get these tackles are going to get some help. I think in a couple of years, maybe even starting next year when he really gets into his peak or prime, I don't think you're going to need a lot of help for Darnell Wright. I think he's just a big, huge physical human being that's going to end up being a very imposing right tackle in the NFL. But yeah, I think Braxton Jones, just his capabilities, I think he's reached his ceiling. He's probably one of those guys that needs help from time to time, but that's okay. You don't have to replace him this year. I certainly wouldn't extend him.
I think you have a coach that's going to understand that he needs help and he's going to receive help this year. Something, you want to leave your tackles on an island. That's great. Braxton Jones is not a guy you can do that with. You can obviously do that with Darnell Wright because he's graded out pretty well doing that. I just don't see that, especially against power defensive ends. He's just overmatched and no fault to his own. He's been serviceable for the Bears. I mean, he's really been serviceable for the Bears. And I'll never disrespect Braxton Jones, man. I never will. I know a lot of people hate him. Get him out of town. He sucks. Man, that guy has statistically improved every year. He's never going to be Trent Williams, but he's a damn good, serviceable left tackle that I just personally don't think will be replaced this offseason. That's just me.
He actually kind of reminds me. Well, guys, what was that guy's name who went to Washington? The Bears let go.
The Bears.
The tackle that we used to have.
The tackle.
The tackle with the Bears. He was serviceable. He was never great. He wasn't terrible. And the Bears ended up at the end of his rookie contract, let him walk, and he ended up signing with Washington. His name will come to me.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I
mean, he's a better version of that. And that guy actually ended up playing pretty well.
Charles Leno.
Yeah, Charles Leno.
Charles Leno. Thanks, Foster.
He actually ended up playing pretty well for Washington. He was kind of like that Braxton Jones type player. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, Sean, when they have the money and they have the draft capital to do so, we would like to see the Bears upgrade at the left tackle position, considering Caleb Williams is right-handed and that's his blind side.
Hey, and I'll tell you this, Foster
they might not be able to do that in one offseason, guys.
Foster, I do agree with you. Interior line is the biggest need on this entire team. We can all agree on that. I agree on that.
The front office agrees with you too.
Yeah. No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind.
So we're coming down to it here. So and you guys,
I don't think we're going to get to everybody we wanted to get to here today. Probably the best slot receiver in this draft, though, is the gentleman that I just mentioned, Emeka Egbuka. Love this kid out of Ohio State. On most draft boards right now, he's going in between 19 and 32. He is up there as one of my top wide receivers in this draft. He's an absolute burner. He has a 4.3 40. His best traits: late hands, ball tracking ability, catch through traffic. He does use his body. He's a smooth route runner. He's someone who understands in the slot how to use his leverage and tempo. Great toughness, very high floor. He compares as an athlete to Monra St. Brown. So he's got better long speed than Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's also a little bit better, they're saying, a lot of scouts are saying, than Jackson Smith and Njigba, who looked pretty damn good last year in Seattle. He is what I was talking about, the very definition of a power slot. In a weak 2025 draft class full of uncertainty, Emeka Egbuka is a ticket for GMs to save their job. I absolutely love Emeka Egbuka. Love this kid to death. He's got elite straight line speed. He demands respect from the defensive backs. He's technically polished. He's a day one starter. He has nice, subtle tempo changes. He uses precise footwork to create separation. I absolutely love this kid, man. And I just hope he doesn't end up in our division, because I think he's going to have a really, really good NFL career. I did see him, though, on a few draft boards, and God damn it, help me if this happens. But the Green Bay Packers are looking at Emeka Egbuka, dude, and I will break something if that happens.
I'll tell you what, Sean, watching those highlight films, man, Josh Simmons is a beast, dude. It's so bad that he got hurt. He's an absolute beast. That guy,
he's projected, I think, mid to late first round. So, I mean, he might be available there, but I got a feeling he's going to go before the Bears pick.
Sean and I had a conversation about Josh Simmons and that injury and just how devastating it is. But, man, when he was healthy, he was the left tackle. He was the guy, he would have been drafted top 10 if he never got it.
And I'll do one more, and then we'll wrap it up, because I really love this kid, Jalen Royals, out of Utah State. He's projected late second, early third, 62nd overall wide receiver, 8th position ranked, 26 college games, 1,413 snaps, 22 years old. He's NFL size at 6 foot, 204 pounds. Another guy, absolute burner, 4.3 40. Elite producer in college. 2024 season was cut short due to a foot injury, but you guys got to check this out, dude. He played 8 games. He had 55 catches, 839 yards, 6 touchdowns, forced 17 missed tackles in 7 games, dude. He is the most underrated receiver in this draft, in my opinion, right now. He was on pace, if healthy, for 94 catches, 1,400 yards, and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Absolute.
Listen to this strength. Explosive straight line speed that stresses corners vertically and turns shallow crosses into home run plays. Ask Boise State about that 75-yard touchdown.
And you know what, guys? He had a really good 2023 season too, with over 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. So he's not a fluke guy. This is repetitive.
Sean, you guys, was that an injury? He got injured?
Yeah, he hurt his foot and missed the rest of the
a Liz Frank surgery.
Injury,
Jesus.
You know what, though? That's something. You know what? He's not going to be at the combine. This is a guy that could slip through the cracks and end up on a team like the Chicago Bears with one of those,
No, he's going to end up on the Packers.
Oh, God. Don't say it. No, I have a feeling the Packers are going to take Emeka Egbuka. I just have this terrible.
You really
terrible
think he falls to the Packers?
Most draft boards. So I've been going on that NFL draft database, and I've been looking at where a lot of these players have been drafted. And in that, in there, as of yesterday, when I did this write up on Egbuka, they had him going in between 19 and 32. So that's right in the Packers range.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Dallas Cowboys drafted Emeka Egbuka, man. I really wouldn't. This team has struggled with the second string receiver for 5 years now. They need another playmaker on offense. I'm not saying that they don't need a running back as well, because they do, but I think Emeka Egbuka would be the biggest impact for the Dallas Cowboys. You line him up across from CeeDee Lamb. They let Brandon Cooks walk, right? They're not resetting him. For me, if I'm the Cowboys, that's the guy I'm targeting in this year's draft, me personally.
And unfortunately, guys, we love Luther Burden. We didn't get to him today. I love Jack Beck out of TCU, and I love Savion Williams. I may even pop up and do a solo show on Savion Williams, Jack Beck. I don't think we really need to learn about Luther Burden.
Sean, pick who you like the most and do. We got some time here. Pick who you like the most and do them right now.
I really like Jack Beck, man. I really do. Let me find my write-up on Mr. Beck here. Give me 1 second. He's got a long video, so we have a quick second. Where did he go?
The Texas Christian University Horned Frog.
Yeah, him and Savion Williams. Savion Williams is a very interesting guy. Jack Beck, to me, I wrote down he's the most unique wide receiver in the top 25 or in the 2025 NFL draft. He's a converted tight end playing X, and he's a physical route runner at 6'2", 215 pounds. He boasted a 1.6% drop rate and a gaudy 70% contested catch rate. He's also one of the top run blockers in this class. The one thing with Jack, that put Jack a little bit higher up on draft boards was he was the big winner at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
He's got a big frame.
Is it just me, or is it like watching Alec Pierce?
Dude, that's what I'm saying.
Alec Pierce, dude. He looks exactly like him.
You know, if he gets in the right system, man, this guy's going to take off. Natural ball skills, sharp route runner, raises his play against top competition. I really, really love this kid a lot, man. Jack Beck, I really, really do. And I hope he lands in a nice spot that's going to help him excel.
He maybe got a little overshadowed by Savion too, but he's a good receiver. He's a baller. He's a fighter. You know, a good story. Well, not good, but fighting for his brother. That's what motivated him this year to play well. Just a good kid. I mean, honestly, if you have him on your team, you're not going to not like him.
You got a winner.
One of those fan favorite guys, I think.
Yeah, you got a winner.
Yeah,
I love Jack Beck, man. I mean, I wish this was a guy. If the Bears were thinking about, moving DJ Moore to the slot, which guys, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying maybe it's a thought because they are matching up with some of these guys. And if you want to look at
drafted,
Jack
third
Beck,
round.
Third round, yeah. He's a guy that could fall to the Bears. I mean, he could.
I wouldn't be upset at all if the Bears announced the third round. They're drafting Jack. That guy's a beast.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of everything, man. He was spinning. He's stiff arming. He's fast. He's open downfield.
The other guy from there is Savion Williams. He's another third round draft pick, overall 96, 13th ranked, 48 college games, 1,967 snaps. Dude, this guy is an insane athlete, man. A lot of people are saying he's Quentin Johnson 2.0.
Yeah, a couple guys in the comments were.
Yeah, I trust me. I get it. I get it. Not everyone's going to work out, but this guy has hit his top speed at 21.7 miles per hour during the game. He's 6'5", runs a 4.4 40. I mean, he's everything you want. He led all wide receivers this year with 43 total missed tackles. The next best was 32. He also took snaps at running back. 73.5% contested catch rate. I mean, the thing like here, so college career contested catch rate success. In his career, Savion Williams, 73.5. Travis Hunter, 65.5. Nico Collins, 63. Drake London, 56. Justin Jefferson, 54. Marvin Harrison, 52. CeeDee Lamb, 51. T-Mac, 50%. Jamar Chase, 50%. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that this kid could be special. He could be special if he falls into the right system. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Where does he get drafted? What round?
They have him right now. They have him going in the 3rd round. But he's an ultimate gadget guy. He can play. He can play the slot. He can play the X. He can play the Y. He can take. There he is right there taking a handoff out of the backfield.
But is he going to be a flop like LaVisca Chenault, or is he going to be a stud like
What you say, Kyle?
He initiated the contact in that play. He ran right into that. He could have ran out of bounds. He just ran right over that guy.
There's a lot of good players in this draft, a lot of good wide receivers, man, from the Jalen Royals to the Tez Johnsons to the Pat Bryants to the Restrepos. I mean, there's just so many good guys in this draft. The Chicago Bears, if they're looking for one, could find in that 3rd round. And again, if they do trade back and end up with a 4th round pick, that this is famous. I would like the Bears, and depending who's there. And I know it's a little bit early because he's projected to go later in the draft. But if he at 10, man, if he's there, give me Kenneth Grant, dude. I really love that guy, and I hate everything from Michigan, but I really love Kenneth Grant, dude. Like, I really do. I would be really happy to have that big man in the middle. You put Kenneth Grant next to what's his nuts? Andrew Billings. Oh man, dude, you got space eaters. You're opening up so many things. And Kenneth Grant at his speed. I mean, we saw him 30 yards down the field, chase down a freaking running back. He runs a 4.5 40 for a 360-pound cat. Like, I mean, the athleticism for that big guy just jumps off the screen to me. I understand he's going a little bit later. I have seen some mock drafts where he goes to the Packers as well. So I think a lot of people are throwing darts at what the Packers are going to do late in the draft.
You look at enough mock drafts. Everybody projected in the top 32 has gone to the Packers, and one of them. I mean, that's just what happens. You guys,
Grant over Harmon. That's a good one at Matt's. I would take Derek Harmon out of Oregon as well. I would. I'll just tell you this. I don't think you're going to lose with either of them. But if I had to rank them, yes, Aunt Mass, I would probably say overall skill set, Derek Harmon might be a little bit better than Kenneth Grant. I don't disagree with that.
Well, that's all the time we got, guys. So Broski Bear, Aunt Mass, Elizabeth, Brandon, Dustin, Foster.
Everybody.
And just
breaking news, Bruce, White Ghost, a first-time listener, I believe. White Ghost, thank you so much for joining us, man. Camel Toe Inspector, how could I possibly forget Camel Toe Inspector?
Turd Ferguson was in there for a bit.
Ferguson was in the chat here. Sean, what do you want to talk about?
What's up, T?
Stuff here.
Hey, I don't know.
What up, dude?
You guys, somebody in the chat here asked if we were going to do safeties.
We can do. You want to do safeties next week?
Yeah, let's do some safeties. I think that's a real high chance the Bears take a safety.
Yeah, I agree.
Third round pick right there. So
I agree. We'll do safeties next week. I was kind of the I want to do wide receivers because I like the shiny toys. So
well, next week we got the combine too.
Well, we're gonna do the combine on Monday. We'll probably break down a little bit on Wednesday, but I know after Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we definitely have to break this down on Monday. Yes, and really quick, guys, we mentioned this throughout the show. We're gonna continue to mention it. We really appreciate all you guys' support, and you guys have really become a great community for all of us. And what we're going to try and do is, or not what we're trying to do, what we are doing is we're going to rebrand this entire thing. 4-Star Chicago Sports. We started doing it as 4 friends, just talking sports, but it's something we really love, and we really love hanging out with you guys in the chat. So we're going to turn this thing into a website. We're going to start doing some giveaways. down the road, probably within a month or so.
Eventually, guys, the goal is to be on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter,
Yes.
X, whatever, Facebook. We're gonna
expand
push
the
this to the next. Really push this to the next level, guys. We've talked to some people who can help us out. Real quick, guys, I want to just say, have Bruce give you guys a wave here. This is our producer.
What's up, guys?
Breaking news, Bruce. This is the face behind the name, guys. Good friend of ours personally, helps a lot with 4-Star Chicago Sports. Jason, as always, thank you for being here on a Wednesday, man. We appreciate you. Jason, I think there might be some shows coming up in the next couple of weeks here where they might be asking you to fill in maybe a Monday or a Thursday if possible. So just
put me in, coach.
Ears open.
We're going to go to the
going to have a baby here pretty soon. So.
Anything you want to get out there before we wrap up?
Shit, fuck Green Bay.
All right.
Fuck yeah.
Let's go. That a boy. Awesome.
And we're going to look for a new player. We're going to try and get out the training camp and see if we can get a new player that we can throw up here and have him saying that. So,
yeah, and guys, keep an eye out for the Bare Minimum podcast tomorrow night, 11:30.
Yes.
Brandon and Dustin will be on there. Sean and I will be back Saturday, break down some Cubs baseball. There's an article that Sean and I came upon. We really, really want to talk to you guys about, get kind of your opinion.
yeah, Saturday is going to be about the Cubs' cheap spending habits.
Why the Chicago sports owners keep acting like they're not Chicago sports owners. We appreciate all you.
Miraculously, the Bears now for some reason.
It should be a really.
You know what?
show.
I said this to Sean on the phone. Jay, you tell me if you agree. Just before we get out of here, Bears fans keep bitching about the fact that the ticket price went up 10%. If their excuse for doing that is, we just signed one of the best coaches in the NFL, a $13.5 million deal instead of our normal $6 million coach we normally do. Some of that's going to come out of the ticket price. You know what? I'd rather pay an extra 10% and watch the Bears win football games than pay that less than 10% and watch them be abysmal for the next 20 years again. So if that's what it costs to get a good coach here, I'm all for it, man.
And honestly, don't be surprised. I was thinking about this too. If they build, which I think they will in Arlington Heights, don't be surprised if the tickets are actually a little bit cheaper because some of that money of those ticket sales goes to the city. All the concessions, I think, are the city. They're not the Bears. We'll have concerts and everything else there too. So cross your fingers we build in Arlington and, maybe a Green Bay home opener isn't $700 anymore.
Yeah, I hate to tell you this, but everything I'm hearing is Soldier Field or Arlington Heights is it. So I don't think I think it's.
You don't have to hate to tell me that. I'm rooting for it, man. I don't want to drive to the city anymore, dude.
Yeah,
you know what? It was
Arlington Heights, no problem.
That was just funny, Kyle. We're going to our 27th. It'll be 27th straight home opener this year. I'll tell you this right now: Soldier Field getting in sucks, getting out sucks. The bathroom sucks. Everything about that stadium sucks. So please.
Yeah, we always bring Jason. That sucks.
Yeah, but the fun thing is you might see me spear somebody. You might see me wander off.
What are going to get with old Jason up there, guys?
Yeah, no
the
kidding.
Polish Thunder 57. There's a reason he got that name, guys.
Bruce is out in the Arlington Heights area. He might be tailgating in his driveway.
Yeah.
Hey, boys, until next week, don't forget Thursday, tomorrow, Saturday, and, of course, we'll be back with the House Hall Hangover. We love y'all. God bless y'all. Peace. Bear down, everybody. Talk to y'all next week.